lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get
He missed the complete. He's crazy
Side by side,
stuff.
Freitas is on the grass on the infield before. He slides through, he tags Richard Eck.
Welcome to Kansas Motor Speedway, home of Round 5 in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and you're watching it all live on the Global Sim Racing channel. I'm your host, Joe Peak. With me in the booth today are Kevin Brown and Ayrton Ellis. Our cameras have been provided by the talented Doug Beard and are directed by the diligent Giancarlo Lenzi. Well, today it's going to take more than a pair of ruby slippers for the drivers to bring the car home. This Roval is a recent addition to the Conti series, so let's go to Ayrton to learn a little bit about its relatively simple layout.
Thanks, Joe. As you said, Kansas is a Roval circuit, second one that we had this season after Daytona. It is about 2.3 miles long, 3.8 kilometers, and has 6 turns, including the oval section of the course. And we're going to be doing a 2-hour race, so very long and exhausting race for these guys. And we're going to go now over to Kevin for the GS standings.
Well, we've had a little bit of a shake-up this season. The guy that we're used to leading in front, Kimo Suominen, he's in second, 30 points behind Patrick Fieri, who looks to only consolidate his championship lead with no Kimo Suominen today. Elliot Huffman's in third place, 31 behind. Nicholas Bailey in fourth, and Jason Breifogel is your fifth place in GS. And for ST, Joe's going to tell us.
Well, we've got Amjad Yaman up front, leading with 146 points. Behind him, João Freitas, coming off of 2 wins recently, is only 20 points behind at 126. Our defending champion, James Stevenson, not having a good season so far, currently sitting in third, 25 points back from Amjad. Then behind him, it's his teammate Stefan Oergaard at 111 points. And finally, Sergio Mora still seeking that first win in this season in the ST class at 105 points. Let's hop on board and see what it's like on one of the cars on a lap around here at Kansas. So let's bring that replay up and see what it's like. All right, let's take a lap around the Kansas road course with Kevin Brown behind the wheel of the GSRC Mustang. Coming across the start-finish line here, you want to get down to the apron because you're not going to be allowed to brake on that banked portion. Now, it's going to be heavy braking for turn 1, and there's not going to be much grip. You'll see Kevin slide around a bit here. That's the way it is around this whole track. Get back to the left side, and then just a little bit of a lift for this right-hander, and back on the power, and get to the left as far as you can. Don't dip a wheel in the grass. Once again, very little grip. You see him sliding around. It's going to be tricky around there. And then you got heavy braking for this hairpin. This is going to be a great passing opportunity for guys, especially if they didn't get a good enough exit, had to lift on that previous left-hander. And speaking of which, you want to get as good of an exit out of this one as you can as well, because you don't want to be going too wide through this right-hander coming up here. It's going to be flat out once again. And then you have this extremely difficult braking zone, curved braking zone into yet another hairpin, and then on top of that it dumps you back onto the oval. So once again, it's incredibly important to get as good of an exit as you can. Can't go up into that banking yet. You'll see Kevin wait for that dotted line. That's where you're allowed to finally switch up to there, as he does so now. And then obviously from here you just have your foot to the floor all the way to the start-finish line. Now, this track has been much maligned. It's not very popular among drivers. It's a relatively simple layout, and obviously it doesn't have a lot of history to it yet. But from my time doing laps, I think it's going to put on some great racing. It's a very interesting challenge. But that's a lap around the Kansas road course. As you can see, it's a very fast course around here, with most of it being the oval. While we watch the GS cars put their qualifying laps in, let's go through the ST qualifying with them having already finished. And interestingly, I see that Dexter Castro is sitting on pole with a 132.8. Behind him is Sergio Mora completing the front row at a 132.88, so less than a tenth of a second between them. Then Amjad Yaman, current championship leader, is sitting in third. James Stevenson is next to him in fourth. Stefan Oergaard is sitting in fifth. Russell Clayson sixth. Arthur Chan in seventh. George Britton eighth. Matthew Reinhold ninth. And Eric Smith is sitting in 10th, Ayrton.
Then we've got Corey Fergus, an actual real-life pro driver here in 11th. João Freitas, who's normally higher up on the standings, maybe not able to get a draft partner for qualifying. He's sitting in 12th. Then our own Richard Losburn 13th, sorry. Ed Voras in 14th. Stephen Asbury in 15th. Bill Randleman in 16th. David Whamman in 17th. And Tom Eckline in 18th.
So a fairly decently sized ST field today. Should be interesting around there. Those guys seem particularly affected by the draft around here, Ayrton.
Yeah, the draft in the MX-5 has always been really good, and we see that a lot of the drivers, especially those with drafting partners, were able to get some really fast laps, including the duo of Dexter Castro and Amjad Yaman, who were working together all qualifying, as the viewers didn't see, but we were watching during qualifying. Also, some teammates to note are James Stevenson and Stefan Overgaard. Those guys are normally in the top 5 together, so we might see some team play coming into effect here.
Now, you made an interesting note earlier, Kevin, about Patrick Bieri, who was the pole sitter here last season, and he's currently our championship leader. He's really coming to the fore, and I have to say his chances are looking pretty good today.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you as well. He's sitting third currently in qualifying, just a couple of tenths behind the current pole position leader, Steve Brown. Patrick Bieri, as we said, he did win pole position last season, and he almost got the win last season behind Brian Strodbeck. That gap was almost an eighth of a second across the line for the win. So we know that Patrick, he's going to be fast today, just on raw speed. I wonder how conservative, however, he will be, because he's got that big fat points lead in the championship right now. You know, if I were him, I wouldn't want to be risking that. So this is going to be an interesting challenge for him. How conservative does he want to be for the championship, or how much does he want to push and get that first win of the season?
And then on the ST side, Ayrton, the driver that I kind of want to keep an eye on is Sergio Mora, sitting on the outside of that front row. He's had a bit of a bad luck so far this season, and it's kind of like a question of when are things going to swing his way so that he can finally get a win.
Yeah, he has had some bad luck, but he definitely has shown a lot of raw pace, as he has had 1 or 2 poles this season, so he's definitely shown that he has had some good pace. So that outside line, in that second place position is definitely going to serve him well. But we still have to think about that Dexter Castro Amjad Yaman duo, because they're probably going to try to lock that inside line going into turn 1 at the start of this race.
Absolutely. And of course it wouldn't be the Conti Series if there weren't some points of contentions and some various things that guys have to watch out for. And Kevin, one of the things that has been a very much bit of discussion, and also something that the marshals are going to be looking out for, is the track boundaries on this Roval, because you'll kind of watch as we see now currently Patrick Bieri going down the front stretch. He went down all the way to the apron well before the start finish line, and that's something they have to do, and you'll see they have to brake on this flat. They're not allowed to be up on that higher line, and there's some other places like that around the course.
Yeah, they're not allowed to come back onto the banking in turn 5, which is re-entering the banking, until basically the back straight. And the whole reason this rule is there is because the banking is so extreme compared to the apron that you can really upset the car and cause it to spin very, very easily. And actually we saw, you know, I saw earlier when I was messing around with the Mustang that you can actually kind of break the front end of the Mustang if you're up on the banking going into turn 1. So it's a safety issue, making sure that they're down on the apron, but that apron is so much narrower than the rest of the banking that it can kind of catch the drivers out if they're not paying attention. So we may see some guys suddenly kind of dart down onto the apron and maybe accidentally take out another car.
And marshals will be issuing penalties afterwards if they find that someone has transgressed the track boundaries too many times, and intentionally so. Obviously, they're going to give some leeway if guys find themselves as as Kevin mentioned, in situations where they can't get down or it's simply just not safe to try and duck across. So keep your eye out, and it could cause some drama later down the line. Another one of those little rivalries that we've been talking about for quite a long time, I think, Ayrton, is that rivalry between Dexter Castro and James Stevenson. And this is one of the places where it kind of heated up a little bit last season, and it seems like they can't get away from each other. There's been a fair bit of contact.
Yeah, Dexter's definitely proved to be able to match his pace with Stevenson and even sometimes go faster than him on some circuits. And Castro is also very fast on an oval circuit and knows how to use the draft to his benefit. So we have seen quite a bit of rivalry, and we've seen a lot of accidents involving both of them in the past. So I'm going to be interested in seeing them butting heads during this race. It should be interesting.
Yeah, they usually provide some entertainment. We've got about 2 minutes left in qualifying, so when it gets about to 60 seconds left, I believe we're going to run through that real quick just so that we can get that graphic up for you. Before we get to that, I just want to touch on another rivalry to watch out for, and that is Elliott Huffman and Matthew Oak. Those two have been making some contact as well, and they're not the best of buds lately, so we'll have to see if they start to get close to each other and then possibly put the cameras on and see if anything happens there. I think they're planning on giving each other just a little bit wider berth because it's sort of a agree to disagree sort of situation, and maybe try to play it safe so that it doesn't happen anymore. So let's run through real quick. This is provisional standings on qualifying, just so you know, because drivers are still completing laps, but we have some technical issues with our graphics, so we have to do it now to try to get you those up. Steve Brown is currently sitting on pole in GS. Patrick Bieri beside him in second. German Afandador is in third. Nicholas Bailey bringing up the second row in fourth. Arthur Hermont is in fifth. Sean Vandergriff is in sixth. Jeff Jacobs seventh. Alexis Molina is sitting in eighth. Brendan McIntyre is sitting in 9th, and then Elliott Huffman is sitting in 10th, Kevin.
11th is Jason Breifogel. 12th is James Alex Brown. 13th, Anthony Woodward. 14th, Kevin Cook. 15th, Tim Brokaw. 16th, Mike Main. 17th, Philip Carpenter. And 18th is Matthew Oak.
And 30 seconds left in the qualifying. We'll update you if anybody else has upset that order that we just listed off and keep you up to date on that. I have to ask each of you guys, who are your picks for today?
Well, I'll start off and say I ain't picking anybody, no way, no how, not here at Kansas, because this draft is just going to be too important, and the smallest mistake, will solve this race.
Well, I think I'm going to go and actually pick someone. I think I'm going to pick Amjad Yaman. I think that his consistency and his conservative driving will really benefit him in this race.
I have to agree. One of the things I was talking about before the broadcast is that, to me, it seems like this is Amjad's championship to lose at this point. He has really taken to this series like nothing else. We have to remember, even though we've seen him in a lot of broadcasts in GSRC, he's a rookie to this series. It's a familiar format, but still a new format to him. So the fact that he has been doing so well, 2 wins out of 4 races, and both of them right off the bat, is an impressive feat. So qualifying is now over, and I see that the ticker is counting down for the drivers to complete their hot laps, so that should be over soon. You can see now, as we got a camera up there in the stands, you see drivers just completing things, and I don't think I see anybody has changed any things, although I haven't looked too terribly close. Kevin, have you noticed anybody changing the order?
No, I think everything has settled down. Actually, there's been one position change since we spoke. Matthew Oak has moved from 18th to 16th.
Nice little jump for him, as it looks like Steve Brown still has provisional pole. Now, Kevin, Steve, we always talk about this, and I feel bad because I feel like maybe he's tired of hearing this, but here is a guy that just needs to get another win again. He is a champion in this series with the Season 2 championship under his belt, and yet he still hasn't won, I think, since that season. Is that correct?
You're putting me on the spot. I think that is correct. I don't think he's won since Season 3, but yeah, he's definitely hungry for another win. Maybe today's the day for him.
And there we go. Cars have now completed. So the grid has been consolidated. They should be lining up on the grid. Now you can see the pace car there at the end of pit lane, and all the drivers should be following them out soon enough as they all do their final preps and see if they've got enough time to maybe make one last stop to the toilet, because 2 hours is a decent amount of time, Ayrton. So these guys have to think ahead.
Yeah, and a little longer than we're used to. These guys really have to think about the long run. It's a long race, and probably going to end up being a little dull and boring with 2/3 of the track being full throttle. These guys are just going to be sitting behind a huge pack for the majority of the race.
Now, as we see them line up, that pit exit is not anything terribly special, but the entry is definitely going to be an interesting one, Kevin. I have to imagine, especially some of the Mustangs might have to do, or at least should have done, some practice before the race on that pit entry to make sure that they get, the optimal speed, but not blow it.
Yeah, and it's going to be easy to make a mistake under entry. They're going to be carrying a lot of speed when they duck down and then have to get on the brakes hard. And with this flat, smooth track, it'll be easy to lock up those front wheels trying to get the car slowed down so that they don't speed in pit lane and get that penalty. So, these guys are definitely going to be wanting to try and make sure that they're pitting under yellow and not under green.
That is always a point of contention in the series. If you're new to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, drivers tend to have to do about 2 stops on their fuel. And sometimes, if they get a lot of yellows, it is possible to do a 1-stopper. But it's always a very, very risky move to try and attempt that unless you get a lot of cautions early. But regardless, the cautions will come into play today, Ayrton, on whether guys pit, on when they pit, and just how this whole thing comes out.
Yeah, and I believe that the fuel scenario here, we're going to have the MX-5s are going to be able to go about 33 laps on a full tank, and that's roughly about 52 minutes. So I got that data from Dexter Castro, so he doesn't blame us for next time about getting the fuels wrong, but that seems, you're right, if we have a few cautions earlier on, some guys might be able to stretch it on 1 stop, but it's going to be pretty difficult. I'm probably looking for a 2-stopper for this race.
And it looks like, from what I'm seeing, we've got 18 Mustangs and 18 MX-5s. So it is a pretty full field. We've got 36 guys out there on track. If you see John Ellers scored, it looks like he is a did not start today. They are now taking off, as you can see from that nice overhead view as they're all stringed out. They are going to get lined up once again once they hit the oval portion, re-entering in that turn 5. Here's another good passing zone here, Kevin, into this hairpin. It's going to provide a good opportunity where guys possibly won't have to worry as much if they can stretch away and get out of that draft from that guy behind.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The hairpin turn 4 is probably your best spot. That and turn 1, as those give you the most opportunity to try and get a little bit of a gap before you get back onto the banking and have that huge draft come into effect. But I guess we'll have to see. Turn 4, it's a difficult place to pass regardless.
And this one too, this corner, Ayrton, seems to catch a lot of drivers out. It seems to me when I drove it is a very slippery exit there in turn 5 on that re-entry to the oval, and it's so critical because you really need to get the power down with that long portion with the gas fully on.
Yeah, that's just the moment where drivers really have to focus. They have to try to not get too much tire spin to spin the car around, but also get a good exit, as you said. So that's definitely going to be a difficult corner for a lot of these drivers.
Well, now they are lined up 2 by 2 as we see Steve Brown and Patrick Berry on that front row, followed closely by German Fanador and Nicholas Bailey. Question is, can Steve Brown finally bring it home for another win? The pace car is going to be peeling off soon. They are coming through NASCAR 3. And we should be getting a green flag. They basically can go when the leader deems it, and then we will have a split start, and the marshals will call out when the ST class can go. They're going to split it up. Here we go. Looks like pace car's ready to peel off. There he goes, ducking on in. Steve Brown leading them away, waiting for the call. And there it is. We've got the green flag. Steve Brown takes off and he has a very good start and very early on tries to get his way down. Patrick Bierry cuts off German Aventador, try to close off that line, and it looks like Nicholas Bailey is holding him off as well, trying to keep Sean Vandergriff behind him, and they're all filing through turn 1. Looks like everything is nice and clean with a long 2-hour race ahead of them, so let's jump back to the ST class.
Dexter Castro got a very good lead, and James Stevenson shooting from 4th all the way to 2nd place on the inside of Sergio Moore. Sergio Moore goes a little wide. Amjad Yaman also falls back, and James Stevenson already pressuring Dexter Castro. They've already breaking away from the rest of the group, just the top 4 guys at the moment.
And you can see a couple cars actually off. I didn't see quite who that was off in the grass. Let's see if we can figure that out.
Kevin Cook, I think, is the GS Mustang that you're referring to. He got a little loose on the exit turn 2, and into the grass he went, but he recovered safely.
We also had the ST car of Arthur Chan that was in the grass through turn 3, and it looks like, let's see, who is that? It was, there's a red and black car. That is Corey Fergus, actually, who went off into the grass and touched the wall, I think, in 3, but he is continuing on.
And I got to point out that our pole positions car, Steve Brown has done exactly what he needed to do in the infield. He's got about an 1/8 of a gap, 3/4 of a second behind Patrick Bierry. Is that enough to hold him off in the draft? It's going to be close. I see Bierry and Aventador. They're trying to hook up in the draft, get a little bit of train, and Bierry is closing in on Brown. He's gained 2/10 on that back straight, so that may not be enough. It's down to half a second right now as they cross start finish. Brown's going to have to put down a screamer in the infield to have a chance here.
And meanwhile, we had a 3-wide situation, which you saw on your cameras a bit ago. That was between Stefan Overgaard, João Freitas, and I believe that was Corey Fergus actually as well. No, that's Matthew Reinhold. And they might get 3-wide once again as João Freitas is looking to the inside of these guys. He's currently got the right line, Ayrton, as they come towards turn 1.
It looks like he's going to be able to get inside. As we said, João Freitas is one of our faster drivers. He started a little farther back, but he's managing to get through the rest of the field a little better now. He's Stefan Overgaard still defending that outside line really well. So he now has the inside line for turn 2. So Stefan Overgaard is going to defend that position from João Freitas.
Excellent driving from Stefan to be able to hold on through the outside there, and great patience knowing that it would come back to him if he could. Meanwhile, he's still holding that defensive line coming down towards the hairpin as Freitas closes up under braking, but it's not enough. He could get the over-under though here.
So he's going to get a good run, taps his back a little bit. Looks like he's going to just slot in behind Stefan at the moment, as these guys, they already have lost a lot of time to Arthur Chan in 8th place in front of them, so they might want to try to work together and catch back up to the front group.
And speaking of the front group, I'm jumping up to our leader, Dexter Castro. James Stevenson started in 4th and is already sitting in 2nd, so obviously on the move.
They're heading into the straightaway now. It looks like Sergio Moore has a really good run. He's catching up to the back of James Stevenson's bumper and starting to slow down a little bit, looking just to stay behind as Amjad Yaman also closing in as well. These guys are probably just going to stay conservative at the start, not making any big moves.
And I have a change for position up front in the GS class. German Aventador came from about 1,000,000 miles behind Patrick Bierry and took 2nd place over into turn 1. I almost looked like maybe just Bierry saw him coming in the mirrors, realized that Aventador was hot and deep, and just decided to let him go. That was a little insane.
Well, whatever the case, he's apparently made it work, and he is now trying to hunt down Steve Brown in that 2nd place position. As Ayrton said, these guys have a long race to go, and with the draft into play, I would think that most of them would probably be thinking, you know, cool down, just hold position and consolidate things until we start to see how things shape out. Get your rhythm going.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of that, but we can see Steve Brown's just struggling a little bit right there on the exit of the hairpin. Aventador's all over him right now, and considering what he did the last lap, I wouldn't be surprised to see Aventador try and make a move into turn 1 this time by as well.
Yeah, because he does have that bonus point for leading a lap if he can get, and it looks like Steve Brown's actually giving him the inside. So I think Steve Brown knows that there's no point in trying to make this a hard fight and just lets him on by. Maybe Steve Brown's going to come back through up into the braking zone. It looks like he might be looking for it. No, he's just holding position. Let's see if he makes a move as they now come into the braking zone of 1. And takes just a little bit of a peek, but decides to stay behind as now they all slide in. Those top 4 all very close, and then behind them they've got Arthur Hermont just a little bit farther back.
Yeah, and I got to give kudos to Steve right now because I think that was the smart move. I think the best chance right now for anybody is just to work with the guys around you and try and get away from anybody else. So it doesn't help you if you're fighting with the cars in front around you, because you're just going to slow each other up and you're going to allow the cars further behind to catch up to you and make that battle even larger. So work with the guys around you, and just like you're running at Talladega, in the Gen 6 NASCAR guys, just get away from everybody else to give yourself a shot.
We have a challenge for the third place position between Amjad Yaman and Sergio Mora. Amjad Yaman tried to go on the outside of Sergio Mora into turn 1. They had a little tap, and Amjad managed to get the position, but a little bit of damage might have been caused there for one of those cars.
And damage is the last thing that they are going to want around this course, with the draft being so important, being such a high-speed track, as now they head into the hairpin, and it is still Dexter Castro leading James Stevenson ahead of Amjad Yaman, with Sergio Mora in 4th, and then at the back of the train, we have George Britton. We haven't talked a whole lot about him in this series yet. He's made a few appearances here and there, Ayrton, but it looks like he's holding his own today.
Yeah, he actually started in 8th place position. Within the first lap, he gained 3 positions, and now he's already caught up to this front group, so he's having a really good run at the moment.
And I have to imagine that George is probably going to want to get up to James, as now they string out quite a bit coming onto the oval there. Boy, Amjad is not going to want to lose touch of those front two. But I was going to say, George and James are both AMS teammates, so those guys are going to want to keep contact, I have to imagine, to try and help each other out.
And I have a fight up front in GS. Steve Brown and German Afanador were side by side into turn 1. Steve Brown got a bad run through the S's that allowed Patrick Berry to take a look on the inside into the hairpin. He decided not to happen. Nicholas Bailey went to the outside, went deep. Now Arthur Hermont's looking on the inside of him. So this is what happens when you try and make one little move, that the effects ripple throughout all the guys around you. So this is why I think you have to work with the cars around you and get away from everybody else. They're just not able to do that right now.
Very obviously a chain reaction, and Nicholas Bailey in that blue and white car gets tipped by Arthur Hermont, holds onto it, and now as they try to regain traction, they're causing cars behind them to check up. That is Sean Vandergriff in the pink car, and Arthur is in the red and white car, and then Alexis Molina in the green and white car. Now they're finally getting going, and they are all in line, but hairy moment there. Good to see it. Excuse me. Good to see everybody keep their heads cool in that very tense moment.
Yeah, and that's what happens if you don't get a good run out of that last corner. You just get hung out to dry like Arthur Hermont did. Now we see Molina moving on the outside of Vandergriff. Looks like he's got that spot pretty easily, and Bailey's defending on the inside low on the apron. This is going to get difficult. This is a tough place to be on the outside in this curved braking zone for one.
In the meantime, it sounds like there was a big accident. It looks like it's too far back for our replay to get it, but there was something going on between Corey Ferguson and Richard Losper.
Molina spun Vandergriff. Vandergriff is around in the S's. That was very, very close right there, but it looks like Vandergriff's going to be okay.
Yes, he's back on course, and it looks like there's no caution for that. So a lot of stuff going on, and now we've got the replay. We did see that one live on air. Now we are off board to catch that one. And let's see what happened here. Yeah, it looks like just, I think Molina kind of stuck his nose where it didn't belong there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to put that on Molina. Sorry, Alexis, but it's a little tough. He was on the outside, kind of on the inside for the right-hander turn 2, but just wasn't close enough. He should have given that up.
And with all this battling, it looks like this group is really dropping back, as you see Arthur Hermont really spin his tires onto the backstretch there, allowing Elliott Huffman to try and start to get away. And that's allowed Nicholas Bailey to start to stretch away from those guys. And then in front of them, the top 3 of Bieri, Brown, and Afanador are absolutely gapping the field.
And during that excitement, James Stevenson made a dive bomb into turn 1, managed to get the first place position from Dexter Castro, so now we have a new S2 leader.
Now, Stevenson, Ayrton, is one of those guys that's been very vocal about his dislike for this track. I know it's not very popular with a number of drivers, and he seems to not really favor these draft tracks. I know he got sniped at the end of the last race that we had here in Season 4, so I wonder if he's maybe learned some lessons and can fare a little bit better come the end of the race this season.
Yeah, he definitely does not like the fact that he can't pull away from these guys. He's stuck with this whole pack behind him unless they make mistakes behind him, which he has no control of. So I can imagine James' hatred for these kind of tracks, but he still has a lot of pressure behind him with Dexter Castro getting a run on him.
Yes, and Oh, go ahead.
We had a lead change, a ninja lead change. I didn't even notice it. German Afanador got loose into turn 1, had to surrender the spot to Steve Brown.
So, Steve Brown retaking the lead, a bit of swapping back and forth, but as we said, with this being a bit of a Talladega-esque track for these cars, it's we're going to see a lot of that going back and forth, so don't put too much weight this early on in the race between guys doing that until they start to get spread out. At the moment, and it looks like we've got a car down low. Who is that? That's Richard Losper. He seems to still be damaged as he's going very slow, Ayrton. Have you heard any information on what's been going on with him? Because I know he's been into the pits at least once.
Yeah, he went into the pits, but I mean, his crash with Corey Fergus, he hit the wall very hard, so I imagine that one pit stop is not going to solve his damage very easily. He's actually gone into pits right now once again, so he's definitely struggling right now.
And I'm not sure if this is going to be the end of his day or not as we see him pull into his stall. Let's see if he sticks around. It looks like, yeah, he's going to try and get a little bit more damage fixed on that car. So he's not giving up yet. He's going to stay in this thing. Let's hop back up to the leaders where Steve Brown still has German Afanador right behind him as they come into the hairpin. Oh, and he gets very close, takes a peek into the inside, but decides not to try to make anything of it.
And I want you to take a look at that blue and white car in 4th place, Nicholas Bailey. He was about a second and a half behind these guys, but he got that draft and just caught up like you wouldn't believe and has ditched Elliott Huffman and Arthur Hermont in 5th and 6th. So Nicholas Bailey was the last guy to hang on there. Everybody else needs that needs a yell to come out to catch up. But Steve Brown and German Afanador are looking very fast, Barry looking very smooth.
And that's going to be one of the keys here today, is being smooth and being aware, apparently, of your surroundings with these other cars with such tight racing. Now, Kevin, one of the things I've been noticing as I've been watching Afanador, he's taking a much tighter line through some of these apexes than Steve Brown, it seems. Is there an advantage to that, or is he just maybe trying to get some breathing space?
Could be just as much as driving style as anything. Maybe he's got a little bit more grip in the front end than Steve does, and that allows him to take that tighter line in. Maybe Steve Brown's got a little softer rear end, which allows him to hook up better on exit. So not really sure without, talking to the guys about their setup.
And you could see once again as they headed through one, German Afanador much closer to the apex over those white curves, which definitely don't offer much resistance, so those guys can really attack them. And now Brown is staying a bit defensive, coming towards the hairpin. Now he slots back into the line as we are on board with Afanador closing up on the back. And whoa, he goes very wide actually as Brown almost gives up the position, but Afanador once again decides not to make anything of it. Brown seems to really be struggling with grip.
I'm going to say that was more defensive driving right there. It looked like German turned in real early, carried a lot of speed under braking and into turn in. I think Steve was just being a little careful. But once again, Afanador closing it very hard under braking. Probably caught himself out a little bit. But now things are going to get interesting. They are catching the back of the ST field, guys.
Absolutely. Now traffic will be coming into play. I have to give a lot of credit to German Afanador, Kevin, because he's been very patient in this situation. There's a number of times where a more aggressive driver maybe would have tried to make something out of the situations that started to unfold. But German Afanador is just kind of holding back, making sure he doesn't get into that leader, and waiting for the race to come to him, it seems.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. These guys are both veterans of this series. They have raced a lot of races in CESCS. They know that you cannot win this race in the first 20 minutes, but you can sure lose it very easily, that this race will come to them as long as they stay on track with a whole car. So they're doing a great job of considering that right now.
And these guys are having a very interesting time trying to slice through the traffic in the infield. It's a lot easier as you saw them blow by these MX-5s. Through the oval, but right now they've got it looks like David Wammond and it looks like Bill Randleman amongst them as the top pack is trying to weave their way through, find their way past them. Poor Wammond was on the outside of Afanador. Both those guys doing a good job going too wide through the hairpin. This is where it's really going to get interesting into the braking of 5, a curved braking zone.
As I recall, we saw a lot of issues with that last season about halfway through the race. So these guys have to remember that that is a tough braking zone, and both cars are going to need all that track to make it work.
And they've all slotted through just fine, it looks like. Where is Elliott Huffman in all this? It looks like he's starting to come up on some of these guys, and actually looks like Arthur Hermont has displaced him for that 5th position in the meantime as they now go by. I believe that is Brendan, or I'm sorry, I lost track of who that MX-5 was. That's Tom Eckline that they're going by now on the back stretch. and around the oval. They've got Stephen Asbury down low as well as Bill Randleman. They're just going to cruise on by. So this should be nothing for them, but this could be a good opportunity for them to close up. We haven't checked in on ST in a while, so let's look at what that lead pack is doing over there. Ayrton, has there been any news or any dicing going on?
Well, the top 5 guys have all been quite separate, but we have had a really intense battle for 7th place between Arthur Chan, João Freitas, Eric Smith, and Stefan Overgaard just lurking in the background. João Freitas at the moment has gone into the front of that group, but they've been side by side, switching back and forth constantly.
And one thing to keep in mind, we kept mentioning earlier, these cautions coming into play in these CESCS races. And those guys, even though they've lost a lot of room up to the front, with even Russell Clayson a long ways between them and the lead pack, all it takes is a caution, and everybody is bunched right back up together. So it is not over yet for those guys in the back. So far, it's been very clean racing. We have an hour and 44 minutes left to go, so we are only 15 minutes into this thing, so it's very early days. But obviously, a lot of guys having a bit of an idea of how to play this thing out, Ayrton. Nobody's really making any stupid moves from what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. There was some stupid moves that we didn't catch. I'm just looking at the replay, so I'm going to try and update you here. Matthew Oak went very deep into turn 1 off in the grass, came back on. While he was doing that, that apparently scared Alexis Molina, who went off on the inside between 1 and 2. They started watching each other, and while they were doing that, James Alex Brown came up between them and spun Alexis Molina off. Or excuse me, Philip Carpenter, not Alexis Molina, spun Philip Carpenter off, and he's in the pits trying to get his damage fixed. Alexis Molina himself, the reason speaking of that, wound up spinning off in the hairpin and dropped several spots, and he's down into 14th.
So Philip Carpenter not having the day he wants, but he is back on track. And Richard Losber as well, who is 5 laps down in his class. And whoa, close moments between Philip Carpenter and Jeff Jacobs. I'm not sure if we got that one on camera, but they were heading 2x2 through turns 2 and 3 there. Interesting stuff. We are currently looking at James Alex Brown, who is being hunted down by, I'm trying to see who that is. Looks like Kevin Cook, actually. And that is for 16th and 17th places, the last spots on the track, besides Philip Carpenter, who is a lap down. So these are the last cars on the lead lap in the GS field right now. Meanwhile, James Alex Brown went quite wide coming through 3 there, but kept it together. That's one where some of these GS cars, I think, they're going to have to watch out for, is that exit of 3. I know the last time that I drove that corner in this car, Kevin, it seemed like it was very easy to get loose.
Well, you know, I'm going to say it's very easy to get loose everywhere on this track. It seems like, you know, if you're not careful with how you get down onto the power, you can spin that back end around in a heartbeat.
Very much so. I'm taking a look at Alexis Molina and Mike Main right now. This is for 13th and 14th, and they are getting ready to have a little bit of a battle brewing as they try to go side by side now coming down the backstretch.
Sorry, guys, trying to work with the director right here. Get a little. Oh, who was that? German Afanador just got spun by that ST car. I can't. Is that João Freitas?
No, that was Russell Clayson, actually. It's his teammate, and we've got a yellow flag. And we're on replay as we're watching German Afanador coming down to turn 1 right now. These guys are on the same team with V Apex, but they are in different classes. You can see him coming up behind Russell in the ST car ahead of him. And he tries to duck inside, and it looks like just a little bit too tough to go too wide through there. I wouldn't put blame on either of them in that situation. And it looks like he had a bit of trouble, German Afanador did, trying to get back on. I don't think that's what caused the yellow, because that is not a yellow-causing incident.
You know, I think that may actually be the cause of the yellow, because I think they were worried that Afanador was going to bounce off the wall and back into the pack of cars in front of them. Remember that we kind of throw a full-course yellow in this series to warn drivers about an impending problem as much as anything else.
So we've got our first caution of the day, and we mentioned a little bit earlier, at least what the ST fuel fuel situation was. And I think if you're going to stop now, you're definitely going to have to do a 2-stopper. So the question is, Kevin, who tries to hold out, maybe hope for another caution, or who decides now's a good time as any?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, I'm also trying to catch up. There was also a wreck simultaneously in turn 1. Jason Breifogel was involved. as well as Philip Carpenter and Jeff Jacobs. Looks like Carpenter and Jacobs got into each other in the curved braking zone for turn 1, and that kicked things off. So that also may have been the cause for the full course yellow.
Yeah, and I was just watching that myself as we're looking at a replay now, and we've got a little bit of an error message up on the screen, so I can't quite see who we're looking at. Not sure if that's showing up on the broadcast or not. If it is, I apologize, but a bit of an obstructed view on my screen at the moment. Well, in the meantime, there we go. I think we're good now. We can see Jason Breifogel re-entering just how much the car bounces and jostles when it comes off that banking, which is exactly why they are not allowed to use that line into turn 1. So, with the first caution down, I am not seeing any cars hopping into the pits right now. And actually, well, I think we almost had a moment there as Corey Fergus almost ran into the back of, actually did run into the back of Brendan McIntyre. I'm not sure if we can get a replay of that. That was under caution.
Well, you said ducking into the pits. It may be a little early. I'm not sure. This is a tough call right now. It looks like, I think even if you jump in right now, you'll probably still need another pit stop unless there's more yellows. So I guess we're just going to have to see what guys are going to do here. Sorry to be so clear and concise.
It's okay. No, it's like I was saying earlier. I'm pretty sure at this point, if guys duck in, it's for sure that they're going to be doing a two-stop strategy. As now we're watching that replay with Corey Fergus coming up on McIntyre and just caught up to the train and was caught out a little bit under braking for that hairpin. Just tipped him, but it looks like they're both going to be okay. Just a little bit of damage maybe on the front of Corey Fergus, but I think that was from earlier contact with Richard Losper. However, I think we might have a few more laps of caution here as we're now going back to live. It's certainly been an interesting one as guys have been swapping positions, but a lot of dicing going on as well. And I'm checking, sorry, I was getting some information on the chat here, so I was seeing if our spotter was feeding us anything. And I do see that João Freitas is actually heading into the pits, and he is being followed by German Afanador.
That's interesting. João Freitas is actually our biggest mover in the ST field. He started in 12th place, managed to get up into 6th before he pitted right there. So I'm interested to see what his strategy is there. He's probably going to drop a lot of positions since not many ST drivers are pitting.
Yes, there's certainly going to be a little bit off sequence here, so this could either be a very clever move or a very silly move later down the line. I also see Sean Vandergriff. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We do have ST leaders, James Stevenson, Dexter Castro. Actually, yeah, the ST field's now pitting in, but they're actually a lap ahead of João Freitas. I'm not sure how the wave rounds are going to work for these guys, though.
And a number of people have pitted. Sean Vandergriff is in, Jeff Jacobs is in, Brendan McIntyre is now coming out, Jason Breifogel is exiting, Kevin Cook is in the pits. I see Bill Randleman is already heading out, and it looks like Stevenson is going to I was going to say retain his lead, but he was in 4th last time by the line. That was after I think Dexter Castro stayed out.
He's in. He got passed by George Burton and Amjad Yaman. So he's going to lose 2 positions there. I think he took tires. I think that was the problem.
Interesting move from James. But I have to wonder if this is his call to maybe get himself slightly fresher tires at the end, because I understand, Ayrton, that the MX-5s tend to do better on longer runs for these tires. I mean, what would your call be? Would you rather have them worn out at the end or fresher at the end? Because I would think that you'd at least want them warmed up.
Yeah, well, Dexter, he's definitely going to struggle on the first few laps on this restart because cold tires on the MX-5 definitely makes it unpredictable to drive. But once he gets them warmed up, he will definitely have an advantage on that infield section of the track. So that might be his chance to catch up on these guys.
Once we get back to the start-finish line, we'll try and update you on the standings real quick. I think we've got 2 more laps for green at least, as the marshals are trying to give these cars wave arounds. If you're not familiar with this series, cars that are a lap down do get a wave around, and they split start this. So It takes just a bit of time for these guys to try and get the cars sorted out, but they always try and make sure that everybody is in the correct position. So sometimes cautions can seem a little long, but it's to make sure that all the racing is fair and everything is done correctly so that nobody is shafted in the end, because nobody wants to lose positions due to a bad call from the marshals. So with all this playing out, we're about to cross the start-finish line. You can see we've got Jason Breifogel on the screen now, coming around those high-banked Kansas corners, and we're going to get an updated positions in a second now as we watch the field work their way around under this first caution in this 2-hour race, and we are just about 25 minutes into this thing. Steve Brown is currently our leader overall. Patrick Bieri is sitting in second. Nicholas Bailey is in third. Arthur Hermont is currently in fourth. Elliot Huffman is sitting in fifth. Anthony Woodward is in sixth. Matthew Oak is in seventh. Alexis Molina is sitting in eighth. Tim Brokaw is ninth. James Alex Brown is in 10th. Brendan McIntyre is 11th. Jason Breifogel 12th. German Fandador is 13th. Then 14th in the GS is Sean Vandergriff, followed by Kevin Cook, Jeff Jacobs, and Mike Main. And then Philip Carpenter is 2 laps down. What is the ST class looking like, Ayrton?
Well, at the moment, James Stevenson is in first. Amjad Yaman has managed to get himself into second, and following him is George Britton in third, Dexter Castro in fourth, Sergio Moore in fifth, Arthur Chan in sixth, Russell Clayson in seventh, Eric Smith in eighth, Matthew Reinhold in ninth, and Corey Ferguson 10th.
The lights are off on the pace car. We're getting a call from João Freitas over the chatter to delay this restart here. I'm not sure if he thinks he's in the wrong position or what, but right now, and now we're not going to green. We're getting the yellow flown once again, so the lights are back on. We are going to take just a really brief break as they sort this out, and then we will come back for the restart. Welcome back to Kansas Motor Speedway. We should be going back to green any moment now after a slightly extended yellow as the marshals continue to try and sort out the field. And I think they've got it right this time, as now the pace car has peeled off. Steve Brown is going to lead them to the green flag with Patrick Bieri in hot pursuit. Now waiting for that green to fall. There it is. And off they accelerate away. Steve Brown got a decent start, but not enough to really stretch away from Patrick Bieri. I'm not sure that it's really wise to try and make a move this early on. We've still got an hour and 26 minutes left to go for these guys, and it looks like they are all going to file single file up at the front. Meanwhile, we're going 3 wide in the back, as it looks like German Fanador is trying to slot up the inside of a few cars and makes it work. Incredible stuff.
There's still 2 wide back there through the S's. We've seen this not work out before, and this time looks like it is going to work. There's still two wide. Vandergrift gets in the back of, who is that? I'm not sure exactly, sorry.
Brendan McIntyre, it looks like, and McIntyre is going very slow, actually. He must have a problem of some sort. Meanwhile, let's go to the ST restart. What's that been looking like?
We've already gone about single file, but there has been some action for the 7th, 8th, 9th place position with Corey Fergus and Arthur Chan. They're all trying to get past a lap car of not Matthew Reinhold, Tom Eckland at the moment. He's holding quite a few people up. They've got a huge train in that mid-pack.
And things are still all very cluttered up in the GS field, as it looks like Sean Vandergrift had Mike Main all over him coming into turn 5, but is able to pull away. In the meantime, around the outside, Philip Carpenter is going to try and take a position away from Main.
That was actually Main trying to pass Carpenter into the hairpin, and Stevenson, the ST leader in the back, is just kind of looking at all these side-by-side Mustangs, probably crossing his fingers and just hoping there wasn't anything bad about to happen.
Well, so far so good for that, and it looks like he's got a decent gap back to Amjad Yaman, but I don't think it's enough for him to stretch away, and it looks like that train goes all the way back to Russell Clayson, who is currently sitting in 6th, so we could have a big lead pack here.
Yeah, James Stevenson has a little bit of gap ahead of these guys at the moment, and at the moment it's actually a bunch of teammates mixing it up. James Stevenson is leading. He's on Team AMS, then Amjad Yaman is on 49 Motorsports, then
we've
George
got a car
Quinn.
off.
That was
Patrick.
Oops, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you're right. That's Philip Carpenter, and it looks like he made contact with Brendan McIntyre in turn 1, and that's an odd. It wasn't a very hard hit, but he just decides to pull off. I think it might have been too much damage, and it looks like he's just ducked his car away. Yep.
He may have gotten hit in the suspension. I think he did, and that damaged him. Meanwhile, part of that was Mike Main. I'm not sure if he just completely missed his braking point or not, but he wound up splitting Jeff Jacobs and Sean Vandergrift through turn 1, and that was a close moment. I think Vandergrift might have, Jeff Jacobs might have just said, you know what, I'm not going to risk turning my car in there and getting blown out. But a little bit of chaos on this restart.
Yeah, but it looks like only 1 casualty out of it. Meanwhile, Brendan McIntyre seems to be the only one really in a hunting position back in that group now, as he's trying to hold on to Jeff Jacobs as they come through NASCAR 3 and 4 up to the line. That draft is going to pull him in, but I don't think it's going to be close enough for him to try and take away that 13th position.
No, I agree with you. The only battle right now is Anthony Woodward getting passed by Alexis Molina, and German Fanador follows Molina through turn 1 into the S's. Fanador is a man on a mission right now. He is just scooting through this field.
Remember, he was one of our top contenders up at the front and actually led a few of the laps, so he is eager to try and get back up to them. And I think he's starting to lose touch with every lap that he is trying to get by this car of Alexis Molina, who goes wide out of the hairpin, doesn't get the traction down, and now German Fanador easily outdrags him up to 5.
Indeed, that was pretty easy for Molina, or excuse me, for Fanador, but he is a long ways away from that lead draft pack. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to catch them. He's about 4 seconds behind Huffman in 5th.
In fact, just look at the gaggle of cars behind him, as we are now actually on board with Anthony Woodward, so we can't see the gaggle of cars. But just behind him is Matthew Oak, and we've got a... I'm sorry, I thought a car was spinning and the camera was turning around. We're looking now behind Anthony Woodward at Matthew Oak, trying to hunt him down, pulling in that draft. And you can see it a little bit farther back is James Alex Brown, who has Jason Breifogel behind him. They are going to go too wide. You can see just off in the screen, and is Is Oak going to try and make a move down into one? He's been a little bit dicey earlier on in the race. He's close behind. He might just want to hold on and just keep that draft. He doesn't seem to be making a move, in fact, but Woodward goes defensive, and look at Oak just close up under that braking as they go too wide through this corner. He's not going to be able to hold on as he gets chopped off through two.
And while you were calling that, there was a little bit of action up front. Patrick Fieri kind of poked his nose out on Steve Brown. They were running side by side on the apron. I think Fieri was just trying to make sure they didn't get in each other's way as they've been trying to pull away from 4th and 5th, Arthur Hermont and Elliott Huffman, but that hasn't worked. Hermont and Huffman have been able to catch up a little bit to Bailey in the infield, so this five-way battle up here in the front is back on.
In the meantime, George Britton had an off at turn 1 and is now dropping positions hand over fist, and this is allowing James Stevenson actually to stretch away from this lead pack, Ayrton.
Yeah, meanwhile, George Britton on the inside, same as Sergio Mora, as Russell Clayson has managed to catch up to the group. He was challenging Mora, while Amjad Yaman now getting repassed by George Britton. They're still side by side as they're heading over to turn 5. George Britton has the advantage as they go into the sweeping right-hander, but Amjad Yaman looks to have quite a big head as he's going to have the inside for the next corner entering the oval.
I'm not sure if Britton made contact with someone at some point. His car was just wobbling all over the place for a while there as we see Amjad Yaman actually go high and touch the banking. That's a big no-no, so he's going to have to be careful next time not to try and do that, and he's still got George Britton up the inside of him as we look from on board of Sergio Mora onto the oval.
And while these guys are battling, James Stevenson and Dexter Castro have both managed to get a big lead over this group. James Stevenson especially, he's already gapped about 2 seconds, as now we have a look at George Britton. Once again, he's now got ahead of Amjad Yaman, probably going to defend that 3rd place position for now.
Amjad slotting into line as we can still see from on board of Mora, and following one another across the line as they now get down to the apron, and now Amjad moves to the outside and way outbreaks Britton by a mile, but isn't quite far enough to try and hold on to that spot around the outside. He tries to take a look, but just has to slot back into line, tries to go back to the line, and is way off line coming through 3. Mora has to check up, and now he's got that is Russell Clayson coming up behind him, so these guys are starting to lose touch with George.
Sergio Mora goes a little defensive as Russell Clayson is challenging him, and George Britton actually slowed up a lot going into that braking zone. Looked like he had a little bit of wobble, and while these guys have all been battling, you can see João Freitas in the distance. He's caught up to 7th place position right behind this pack.
Mora just did not get the power down right, had a big wobble coming out of turn 4, and that allowed Clayson to get it behind him, but now he's not close enough to make anything happen. I think at least it wouldn't be wise to try and sneak up the inside of 5 like that. And look at Yaman going very wide yet again. That allows Mora to get on the inside, has better traction, and this could be the move that allows him to finally get by.
Well,
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just wanted to give you an update that there are no updates in GS right now. This battle in the top 5 is staying steady. Everybody's pushing hard, trying to be smooth and be consistent. Huffman and Hermont still trying to hang on to the draft and still struggling with that.
We are still watching Amjad Yaman on the outside of Sergio Mora, and now unless he slots back down in the line, he's going to get cut off by Russell Clayson, and it's too late for him. He cannot slot back down into there. Clayson has found himself actually in a bit of a pick situation because he cannot go any farther forward with Mora up there. Yaman tries to take the position back around the outside yet again, but just cannot make it happen. This time he has a cleaner line through 2 and 3, but he still has Clayson all over the back of him, now coming towards the passing zone of the hairpin of 4.
These guys are starting to battle a lot of understeering problems, and the only one out of them who took tires during pits was Dexter Castro. So at the moment, he's being able to drive his car fine, while a lot of these guys, as you can just tell just from their braking patterns, they're having to brake a lot earlier and are still going wide.
Guys, our leader, Steve Brown, is in pit lane. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. It must be a fuel stop.
I don't believe he stopped at the last yellow. Did he? Did you catch that?
He did not stop at the last yellow. That is correct. But this seems a little early to be ducking in, and it's under green. This is an odd choice, I would have to say.
Well, we are almost we're about 43 minutes into this, so he could be at the end of his fuel, or at least close to the end of his fuel. It definitely is an interesting choice of time, as you said. This could come back to bite him. In the meantime, this is going to hand it over to Patrick Bieri, who takes the lead with Nicholas Bailey close behind him in second.
And I want to see what's going to happen here because Bieri was looking very quick while he was following Steve Brown. So I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make that happen and pull a little bit away from Nicholas Bailey, or if Bailey's going to be able to stay in that draft. It's about an 8/10, 3/4 second gap between the two of them right now. We've seen that this is right on the edge of that draft section. So this is going to be a tough one for Bailey to hang on to right this moment.
Yeah, and keep in mind that Bieri is our championship leader right now, so this is going to do very well for him to get that lead a lap bonus. Meanwhile, Elliot Huffman is holding on to the back of this train of the top 4 and is doing fairly well, although he definitely was losing traction coming out of 5, as you can see him trying to hunt down Arthur Hermont down the front stretch towards turn 1. There's not much between them, but nobody's really trying to make a challenge. Everybody seems to be fairly calm up in this lead pack.
Yeah, you said it, calm. They just keep kind of plugging away on the laps. You know, I keep watching them kind of expand a little bit away from each other, close up a little bit. So I think everybody's just kind of settled down and running good quality laps. You know, I'm looking through the previous lap times that they've been running, and they've all been very consistent. So I kind of had to give them a shout out for that.
We're getting word that only the last 4 or 5 GS cars stopped during that caution, so a lot of the leaders still have yet to pit. We'll see who can make the best of their fuel mileage out of this, especially if it stays green. Meanwhile, German Fanador is still holding down 5th, but he is a whole 7 and some odd seconds behind Elliot Huffman in 4th in that lead pack, so he has a long ways to go if he's trying to catch up. In fact, he's dealing with Alexis Molina, who's still looking a little bit dicey and probably holding him up.
And speaking of long ways to go, that green flag pit stop has just absolutely murdered Steve Brown. He is 16th in GS field. That is the last of everybody running. So he has got a long ways to go right now. He's got to put down some quality laps and make sure that, hope that Bieri and Bailey don't gap him by running in a draft right now.
Small correction on that. Kevin Cook is currently 2 laps down, sitting in the 17th spot out of 18. Philip Carpenter is the only car we have out in the GS class, so Steve Brown is the last car on the lead lap, however. So as long as he gets a caution, that will bring him back into things quite easily. And actually, he'll be sitting in the catbird seat if that happens. So this is one of those risky strategy calls, I have to imagine.
Well, I don't think Steve's going to be in the cat seat because Bieri and Bailey right now are working in a draft right now, and they're able to run faster laps together working in their draft than Steve Brown is able to run by himself. So as long as Bieri and Bailey and Hermont and Huffman stay out, these 4 should be able to cycle in front of Steve Brown and maybe by a couple of seconds.
Well, as we hop over to the ST side, James Stevenson continuing to lead Ayrton, and he looks like he's got, I believe it's about 3 seconds, possibly 2 seconds over Dexter Castro. So he's definitely broken that draft, although Dexter hasn't lost a lot of time, it doesn't look like. So he's holding pace, but he just doesn't seem to be able to reel in that Aussie up in the lead there.
Yeah, meanwhile, there's actually a really good battle going on for the 3rd place position. And actually, a little bit of contact happens between Amjad Yam and Sergio Moore. They're all bunched up together as they were trying to pass George Britton earlier. So Sergio Moore now has a slow get going, and Russell Clayson is now attacking him. And João Freitas also caught onto this group, are pressuring as well as Amjad Yaman trying to go on the outside of George Britton.
This is exactly what those leaders are going to want, with these guys battling each other and losing time, although they're still not too far behind Dexter, so they might be holding on to that draft just a little bit. We are getting word that Patrick Bieri, our current leader, is in the GS class, and that's going to hand it over to Nicholas Bailey, who gets a bonus point for leading the lap.
He does, but Bieri was the only car to come into pit lane right now. So it's going to be interesting to see where Bieri comes out. Is he going to be with Steve Brown? Are they going to be in each other's draft? Or is there going to be a big gap between the two?
Well, Steve Brown right now is coming onto the front tri-oval. Where is Bieri in the pits? He's still standing stationary, so this is going to be very close. Now he takes off. Where is Steve Brown? He is coming up to the pit exit, and he is actually going to clear him and into the braking zone. It looks like things are going to pick up exactly where they left off, as they've got a ST car of Stephen Asbury letting them go by as he goes off into the grass.
So after all my doom and gloom, basically the net result is Steve Brown has a small lead over Patrick Perry.
So it worked out fine. And as I said, though, I still think that Steve Brown could be sitting very nicely if they get a caution, because all those guys behind them, or all those guys that were with them, are going to have to pit and be shuffled behind any of the guys who've pitted earlier, especially if they get it before that 50-minute mark, 50 minutes left mark, because those other guys cannot pit yet and make it to the end. So this is one of those gambles that it could pay off, it could not. We'll have to wait and see. We still have an hour and 11 minutes left to go in this race, so there's still quite a bit to go. It looks like, let's hop back to that battle going on in the top of the ST class, because that's been pretty entertaining for a while, Ayrton.
Yeah, Amjad Yaman managed to get ahead of George Britton for that third place position, but he's not backing off. They've got a whole train of 5 drivers from Amjad Yaman, George Britton, Sergio Mora, Russell Clayson, and João Freitas, all really close together at the moment.
Yeah, and João Freitas was one of those guys that, if I recall, was actually not on the back of them before, so he has caught up with all their battling, and they are definitely losing touch to Dexter Castro. They are a fair ways behind. Currently watching George Britton try to hunt down Amjad Yaman. Let's see if he tries to make another move into one, or if they finally try to maybe work together instead of losing time to these leaders.
And I got to point out that there was a change in the GS podium. Elliot Huffman got around Arthur Hermont to take over second. Huffman managed to take advantage of Hermont being a little lackadaisical, lapping a slower ST car on the banking. Got on the inside of Hermont through the apron in the tri-oval and was able to take the position over pretty easily.
Interestingly, I did notice last time by, João Freitas was a little bit high. I'm not sure if he was trying to avoid running into the back of Russell Clayson, but it was interesting that he went above the white line, which again is a no-no into that turn 1, so he'll have to watch out for that. Here's hoping that he doesn't receive a penalty after the race.
Also to note is that Dexter Castro, in the previous few laps, he's been closing in just 1 or 2 tenths every lap on James Stephens, so he's slowly closing in on him. He's exactly 2 seconds behind at the moment, but soon, in just a few tenths, he'll be within drafting range.
Pretty phenomenal stuff from Dexter Castro, because Stevenson is usually one of the fastest drivers in this series, and also one of the cleanest, we have to say. So he's very hard to reel in with his consistency and precision. And if he gets within that draft, it is going to be game on between these two, and it's for the lead between these two rivals that have come to blows so many times before. So I'm pretty excited, Ayrton, to see what's going to come of this.
Yeah, Dexter definitely has the advantage at the moment. As we said earlier, he did take tires on that previous lap, so his tires have finally broken in, and that's why he's running these faster laps. So it's really going to benefit him. In this previous lap, he just gained another 2 tenths, so he's closing in fast.
And an hour and 8 minutes left to go still, so we are not quite to the halfway point. Once we hit the halfway, I believe you said it was it about 50 minutes that they had Ayrton on the fuel tank in the MX-5s?
Yeah, I calculate they pitted around the 35-minute mark, so these guys, they're going to be being able to go until the 1 hour 25-minute mark.
So that is the point at which they will absolutely have to pit. However, if they get to the 50-minute mark, then they can pit. If they pit after the 50 minutes left mark, then they for sure absolutely should be able to make it, unless they short fueled, which we have seen in this series before. In the meantime, it looks like we've got some traffic in front of James Stevenson. Now, normally this could hurt a driver, but he's coming up on him on the oval, and that is Ed Verras in front of him, and this is going to give him a draft and just that little bit of speed that he's going to want right now.
I believe it's going to give Dexter Castro also draft on the next lap as well, so this would probably benefit both of them if they handle it correctly. But we do see James going on the outside, which is actually the longer way around the oval portion of the circuit, and actually not gaining around on Ed Verras, so he actually might be losing a bit of time here.
I was going to say I'm surprised that Ed didn't give him the inside lines since he was a lap down, but whatever the case, you were right. Now that Dexter Castro is pulling the draft of Verras just a little bit, but I think he's probably going to wind up getting by him, as now he pulls over to let Dexter by as they come through 1, and it wasn't quite enough as Dexter's still sitting behind him, now coming through 2 and 3, and I think he should be able to get him before they get to 4.
Dexter Castro actually just ran a 1 minute 32.4, which is half a second faster than the fastest qualifying lap for the SD car. So he got a huge draft from that lap.
And now you can see visibly just how close he is to the Aussie James Stevenson, trying to run down the defending champion of this ST series. And I think this is going to be his best opportunity. We'll see if he closes in. Now coming up to the braking zone of 5. He's losing it a little bit as they accordion out. Now they accordion back in under braking. Let's see if he gets a good enough exit. They're staying nice and tidy on that white line that leads to the banking. And he's closer, but I don't think he's quite close enough to reel him in this lap.
He's definitely going to get a slight draft, so I think this is a chance for Dexter Castro. He's already pulled away from the 3rd place gap as well, so it's really just a duel between these top 2 guys.
Meanwhile, in GS, it sounds like we have more drivers pitting in and a change of lead once again.
Yes, our leader, Nicholas Bailey, and 3rd place, Elliot Huffman, they stopped and got their fuel strategy done. The difference, though...
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a wreck. George Britton, if we can get a replay on this, is up in the wall in NASCAR 3. I am not sure what happened here. As you can see him following Amjad Yaman, and you'll see in a second, it's a very bizarre incident. He must have had a hardware failure. Just watch as the car just suddenly straight lines, there you go, and up into the wall, and he can't do anything about it.
And finally there is the yellow.
That is a bizarre incident, but we've seen things like that before. I remember in one season where Stefan Oergaard at Road Atlanta absolutely blew through the S's when his wheel failed. And it looked really bizarre then, but once we learned what happened, it made so much more sense. So we'll have to maybe pull George in a little bit later if he comes on and see if we can figure out what happened. Well, since we've got a caution and we've got an hour left to go, it's too soon for these guys to pit their final time. It's going to be interesting, but we're going to hop to break, and we will come back and update you on how things have gone down. Welcome back to Kansas Motor Speedway. We are past the halfway point here for round 5 in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. In GS, as you can see, Brendan McIntyre is leading the field. We are going to come back soon to green from our second yellow. Steve Brown is sitting in second. He had an interesting time trying to work his way back through after an early stop, which has worked out very nicely for himself. Nicholas Bailey is sitting in third, Elliot Huffman is in fourth, and Tim Brokaw is in fifth in that lead pack. Meanwhile, in ST, it's certainly been shaken up just recently, it looks like, Ayrton, with Dexter Castro making another stop under green.
Yeah, that slotted him back down to, I think, about 10th position behind Arthur Chan, but right now we do have James Stevenson leading the ST field with Amjad Yaman right behind, Sergio Mora in third, and then we have Matthew Reinhold and Ed Varas sitting behind these guys. I don't think pitted in that previous lap. Neither is Amjad Yaman or Sergio Mora, so James Stevenson out of the top 5 is the only one who pitted last caution.
So things are quite mixed up, especially with Brendan McIntyre being up front. I have to imagine Steve Brown is not going to spend a lot of time waiting around for him and try to make some distance, because between, up front, excuse me, he's got Nicholas Bailey and Elliot Huffman behind him, and those are decently fast guys, but he could possibly gap them if he can get himself and Brendan McIntyre between him on the restart.
Right, but there are a lot of different strategies going on right now. Patrick Bieri and Arthur Hermant are on 2 completely different strategies from the rest of the guys they were with before. Bieri is currently 11th in class. He's served his second stop. Not sure if that's enough to get him to the end right now. Arthur Hermant, who was leading, served his final stop, but the pace car is off, and we're going to go into green here.
And we're looking back from Steve Brown on Nicholas Bailey at the moment as we wait for the green flag to fall. There it goes. Brendan McIntyre tries to take off, and he actually gets a very good start as Steve Brown starts to drop back, while you can see Nicholas Bailey is holding right on the back of Brown. And coming up to turn 1, how's it going to look as we look back to the field? Everybody is shuffling into place. And I'm hearing some chatter over the radio. I don't know if there was any accidents going on. It looks like even though we've got some 2-wide situations, everybody's slotting into line through 2 and 3. What does the ST start looking like? And we've got some action between Arthur Chan and someone else has got hit. We've got a pileup going on.
Yeah, a huge mashup between a lot of cars. I think that was Matthew Reinhold who had contact with Arthur Chan going into turn 1, so that caused a lot of problems. James Stevenson also on the start shot into pit lane, which caused a lot of mix-ups with black flag clearance, so a lot of these drivers got black flags for some reason.
And Alexis Molina had a big spin out of the S's, somehow managed to keep it off the wall and avoid hitting anybody else. That was a close call in there.
And we're watching that replay of that pileup. You can see it was just two cars trying to go to the same place, and then everybody just kind of started having no place to go in the chaos of the restart, trying to figure out where to go. We don't have a caution flying, though. However, poor Matthew Reinhold, after restarting in third, has now got a damaged car and is trying to limp back.
And Arthur Chan, the man who had contact with Matthew Reinhold, he's shot up to 3rd place now, so this is the highest position that he's run so far.
And
meanwhile,
guys,
up front, we've got a change of lead, it looks like.
Yeah, Steve Brown is just driving right around the outside of Brendan McIntyre on the banking. Definitely has more speed, but McIntyre's got the preferred line into the difficult turn 1 braking zone, and McIntyre's going to hold on to it through apex, although Brown's looking at an over-under. He's on the wrong side, though, for the S's, but he's still going to try and force it too wide, gets onto the grass, close to a cut course penalty right there, but I think he's managed to avoid it. However, now he's got Bailey and Huffman getting ready to breathe all over him as they approach the hairpin, Joe.
And once again, on the wrong side, coming up to 4, and it looks like Bailey decides now is not the time to try and make anything happen. He knows that Steve is already too caught up in trying to work his way into the lead past McIntyre. I have to give credit to McIntyre. I did not expect this quality of racing from him, and he is making that car as wide as possible. Now coming up to the braking for 5. Brown is all over the back, but now he backs out of it. He knows that now is not the right place because he's going to get a draft as they come onto the oval. McIntyre goes way wide, but look at the lack of traction for Brown as the car just wiggles trying to get the power down, and they're going to go side by side as they drift up onto the oval.
And I think this was a perfect over-under by Steve Brown. This is going to set him up to be on the inside for turn 1 and have the perfect run. And speaking of runs, German Afanador has shot forward through the field from his mid-pack spot. I think he was 9th on the restart. He's currently 5th. He is in that lead pack right behind Elliott Huffman, maybe out of screen right now, but he is there. And it looks like Bailey's going to poke his nose on the inside, on the outside of Steve Brown as they both go past Brendan McIntyre.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity for Bailey, who has never won a race in this series, and he is holding on to the back, but now Brendan McIntyre comes around the outside. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? If he can, no. He would have had the inside for 2, but it's not going to be. Now, as he continues to slide backwards, he's got Elliott Huffman and German Afanador very close behind him. In fact, look at German Afanador just all over the bumper, and it looks like Elliott Huffman actually is going to take a look coming up into 4, into braking. He's able to get by. McIntyre could pull it over under, but no, he drifts very wide, and this is actually going to lose him another position to German Afanador, who now moves up into 4th.
And another guy who's been trying to move forward is Patrick Vieri, who, remember, he was in 2nd much of this race, but he made contact with Matthew Oak into turn 1 the last time by and spun Oak around. I think Oak has some damage, and Oak has got to be heated right now. This did not go the way he wants. Vieri, I think, might have a little damage on the right front. Tough for me to actually prove that right now, but Vieri's got an uphill battle right now trying to catch back up to the lead pack.
From what I can see on my screen, yes, his right front is just a little bit banged up, so he is actually trying to hunt down Anthony Woodward, which we are watching coming down the back stretch. He closes in with the draft. He could have a good opportunity into turn 1.
And looking at turn 1, Bailey was showing his nose on Steve Brown, but tucks back inside on the apron, and he's going to stay behind Steve Brown through turn 1, it looks like, unless he makes a really late move. Nope, he's going to stay behind Bailey. I thought he might be interested in taking a stab at it here, but no, this was a smart call.
And remember, Nicholas Bailey is sitting 4th in the championship. He is having a very good year. He's usually not a front runner. And Steve Brown actually gets very loose coming through 3. He stays defensive coming down to 4 and slowly slots back into the line once he sees that he's safe. Bailey has nowhere to try and get by him as they now accordion up, and German Afanador nearly runs into the back of Huffman.
Yeah, Afanador has been a demon under braking today. It's almost like he's picked up where his teammate Russell Clayson left off. Remember, we used to call Clayson Russell Cannonball Clayson just because of how deep he could go under the brakes. And right now, that is Afanador. He is later on the brakes than anybody else into every corner, and he's carrying more speed down to apex than anybody else. That is a huge advantage that he has right now.
And they are now line astern 1, 2, 3, 4 in that top. Steve Brown in the front in the orange and black car. Nicholas Bailey in the blue and white. Elliott Huffman in that 49 Motorsports pink and black. And then German Afanador in the black and gray behind it all, trying to hunt them down. Nobody giving way. We are down to 44 minutes. We are not at the end of it yet, but everybody's getting a little bit more anxious to try and make something happen.
And I've got a nice side-by-side with Mike Main and Sean Vandergriff. Main on the outside of the NASCAR banking, and he's going to lose out. They're trying to catch up to the draft battle between Arthur Hermant and Tim Brokaw. Hermant's on the outside on the apron in the tri-oval. This is going to be a tough place to make this pass happen in turn 1.
And he's actually above the line that they are allowed to be on as Hermant gives up the position. In fact, he's going to have to give it up to Sean Vandergriff as well, as Tim Brokaw goes very wide. Vandergriff takes 2 spots in one corner. Very nice driving, and it's not over yet. He gets bumped in the back by Tim Brokaw, but he holds onto it as everybody tries to slot back in line. Sean Vandergriff with a fantastic move.
And Hermant's got to be kicking himself. He was approximately in Nebraska just a few laps ago, and he's moved up so far, and to get shuffled back 200 spots that he's made up, oh, he's got to be furious.
And I've just been in Nebraska. I can tell you it's not a whole lot of fun, so Hermant is going to really try to push that car to get back up, and you can see he's already taken a look on Tim Brokaw, who goes defensive up into turn 5.
And, yep, they're all settling down with slightly different approach angles in there. Hermant looks like he gets a good launch out of the corner. He's going to be on the inside of Brokaw. Yeah, this is just going to be all done for Brokaw. There's not much he can do here.
Okay, now we have to switch over to ST because, interestingly, I see Amjad Yaman is leading and James Stevenson is far down. Ayrton, what happened over there?
Well, earlier on during the restart, James Stevenson shot into the pit lane, which for whatever reason might have had to clear a black flag that he received during the caution, but he's now dropped very far back, and as you said, Amjad Yaman and Sergio Moore are both leading with Arthur Chan in third. None of those three guys have pitted, though. The first guy who has pitted is Dexter Castro, sitting in fourth.
And there was almost the move of the race just a moment ago. German Afanador got by Elliot Huffman and almost got Nicholas Bailey all in the braking zone of T1, but just had to give up a little bit to avoid a wreck, and Bailey took that spot. That would have been a heck of a move.
Well, he's sitting on the final podium spot right now as German Afanador, as you can see him chasing down Nicholas Bailey coming towards turn 5. They are too far apart right now, so no one's going to be able to try and do anything. But I was going to say, with as I want to stay on this battle, with James Stevenson, Ayrton, I kind of wonder if he's thinking what I was talking to you guys about earlier on during the break. If he can get fuel in his car to make it to the end with, about 50 minutes to go or so, maybe he was thinking, I don't have to stop, everybody else has to stop, and be ensured that I can be there at the end.
That is a possibility. If we have one caution before the end, then he will be jumped up into the first position because everyone else will have to pit. Maybe Dexter Castro might be able to make it, but definitely Amjad Young, Sergio Moore, Arthur Chan, all those top guys are going to have to come in.
And on our screen, we see a battle for the lead brewing once again as Bailey is taking a look on the outside of Brown into turn 1, but Brown easily outbreaks him on the inside and is able to defend the position.
Yep, that's what I wanted to touch on, but thought Afanador might try and be super aggressive into turn 1. No, he was not, but he definitely closes up onto Nick Bailey. That's a great shot. And Patrick Bieri into pit lane. Just saw this guy. Sorry, I wanted to catch that up. So he drops from 6th to currently 14th on track.
Bieri might be trying to play a strategy card or could be making a silly mistake here. We're not entirely sure. Regardless, he should be able to make it to the end. Like I said, with 40 minutes left to go, that is well within the range of what these cars can do. It looks like he was in there for a decent amount of time, so this could be his call on that one, banking on another caution. Meanwhile, these leaders are still battling as Nicholas Bailey goes very wide, and now we might have a change for second place with German Afanador on the inside coming back onto the oval.
Yeah, this one has to be done. Bailey went in just way too deep, way too late under his braking zone, and got a bad run into turn 5 and onto the banking. I think Fanador is going to have this one as he's going to have the preferred line into turn 1.
It looks like this one should be done and dusted. We're going to hold on to it for a while. However, Amjad Yaman and Arthur Chan did duck into the pits as we continue to watch this battle, and look at that. Bailey has lost positions even to Elliot Huffman, who has used the draft to get himself into 3rd.
And that was all because he got a bad run through 5 and a bad exit out of 5. He just couldn't get the RPMs up as quickly as everybody else, and they just drove right past him.
Well, with that change of order and all these pit stops starting to go off, actually I want to check to see where Amjad came out, Ayrton, because since we knew that Stevenson pitted and I just heard someone's engine blow, I thought.
It's an interesting scenario. I don't know who blew the engine, but Amjad Yaman actually took a very long pit stop in comparison to Arthur Chan, who looked like he almost had a splash and go, because Arthur Chan came out right behind James Stevenson, which is pretty accurate since James Stevenson took some fuel during his stop right before the green, but Amjad Yaman fell very far back.
So, interesting move there. And you mentioned that Stevenson pulled in right when the green fell, and I actually just saw a car off. Who was that? I'm checking on it just now, and he seems to have disappeared on me, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to find him in time. But I was going to say, with Stevenson pitting right when the green flew, guys were still getting up to speed. They're going to be battling a lot, so that was actually probably the optimum time for him to pit under green, because everybody's going to be doing a slow lap.
So far, he has gained a lot of time jumping to Arthur Chan, so far that has actually been to his advantage, and he's starting to catch back up to some of the guys at the back of the front pack. He's right behind Bill Randleman at the moment.
Now, I'd have to check my stats. I know Steve Brown's obviously won races. I don't believe German Afanador has ever stood on the top step of the podium in this series. And he is trying to hunt down Steve Brown now that he has got himself into second place. Neither has Elliot Huffman ever managed a win in the GS class nor the ST class, as he has run both, if I'm recalling correctly. So we've got Steve Brown, who has really been wanting a win for a long time, and two other guys who've never won, who are clearly running very well today. So this is very interesting to see who's going to want it the most and who's going to have the best strategy when it starts to come down to these final laps.
Yeah, absolutely. And the answer is I don't know. And wow, German Fanador is once again super late under braking, nearly collecting Steve Brown into turn 5.
Yeah, I think we were on board German when that happened and just saw how close he got. And now it looks like they are trying to work their way past George Britton, who is the ST traffic that is getting lapped. And I'm surprised he isn't trying to get just that little bit of sniff of draft from him, German Fanador, to try and get him a little bit closer. Now you can see him start to reel him in just a little bit, but once again we've got more ST traffic, so this is going to be interesting for Steve Brown. Whoa, and he has to duck way up high as Stevenson has to try and go around some traffic of his own, and now it looks like they're starting to get clear. German Fanador going to try and duck on the inside of some of these guys. I don't think he should try and get outside of Stevenson, but he does, and now he's sandwiched between himself and Losper, and he is actually got Stevenson coming back on the inside of 2, and now he starts to lose time, and this is allowing Steve Brown to really make the gap, and this could be critical.
Yep, that is about a 2-second gap on track live right now, and that is going to break the draft. As Stevenson gets into the back of Huffman, hunts Huffman pretty good. A lot of damage on the back of Huffman right there. I don't think Elliott's going to be super pleased about that one.
And if that caused a lot of damage to the front of Stevenson, that's going to put Stevenson at a huge disadvantage down the straights of the oval. So he's really not going to like that. He's really going to need a partner if he bashed that up. I'm going to check and see, Ayrton, if he's got any damage on the front there.
He does have Richard Losper behind who might be able to help give him a little draft, but besides that, there's not any ST cars in sight, so he's going to have a problem here.
He's got just a little bit of damage. It's not significant. You can see on your screen now just a little bit of a panel out of place, so it will slow him down, but not a huge amount, I would hope. In the meantime, Sergio Mora is still leading the way in the ST class, and Dexter Castro is sitting in second, with Eric Smith actually not far behind him. And this is going to be a bit of a sad farewell race for Eric Smith, from what I understand, Ayrton, as he's actually getting ready to go off and be a teacher in Japan.
Yeah, great opportunity for him, and hopefully he can end on a good note as he's sitting in third, the bottom part of the podium at the moment. Hopefully he can try to get into second or first by the end.
Yes, he's a driver we've been waiting to try and see get up to the top step. He was very good in the Mustangs, but we haven't seen him feature a whole lot in the STs, as it's incredibly fierce competition in the ST class. You have to be so flawless and so fast in these cars, but he's doing very well today in this chaotic race to pick up the pieces where others have dropped him, as we see them go around 5 and up onto the backstretch. Going to use that draft to close in on that second place car of Dexter Castro.
And guys, I've been taking a close look at Elliott Huffman's car, and it looks like he got center punched in the rear by a wrecking ball. Huge damage on the back of his car, but I think his aero might be all right, especially since he's got Nicholas Bailey right behind him, staying behind him. I kind of wonder if maybe Bailey's trying to save fuel and just stay in that draft, but definitely he's going to be helping Huffman out as long as he stays right behind Elliott.
It will be interesting to see if that's what he's trying. We were talking a bit about that under break on whether or not a car could save enough behind the driver in front to try and make something of that. I've heard some drivers say that all you can get is maybe almost a lap out of that draft if you're doing it a lot. So it's pretty late in the races. Now we see Richard Losper up in front of these guys as they try to weave their way around. This is fourth, third, and second, and the GS class, I'm sorry, is now they get by him. Poor Nicholas Bailey had his line compromised just slightly, but now look at, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just want to point out that wasn't Richard Losper, but rather Tom Eckline, so let's not throw Richard too much under the bus that he's already under.
Yeah, well, I didn't think Tom even really did anything wrong. He was where he was, and he can't make his car disappear. So even if it was Richard, it wouldn't have been too big of a problem. But this has allowed these two guys to try and gap Nicholas a little bit. He might be able to close up once they get back to the oval, but these two guys, as they close in under braking, now this is going to be critical for Nicholas to really get on the power and try to keep the wheels from spinning, and he does a very good job. I think he really will be able to close up with that draft now.
Yeah, that was a nice little shot, but you know who broke the draft? Steve Brown. He's 3 seconds in front of German Fanador, so Fanador cannot smell that draft without some significant help from another car impacting Steve Brown, and I'm not sure we're going to see that happen anytime soon.
And don't forget, though, we could see another caution. That is not out of the question in this series as we watch Steve Brown rifle off another lap in the lead. And I think, I'm trying to recall, he should be able to go, or no, he shouldn't be able to go to the finish because he pitted a little bit too early unless we get a caution. Is that correct?
You know, it's going to be close. We saw that Arthur Hermont managed to go a little over an hour with 2 yellows before he stopped. I think it was close to 65 minutes, maybe 67. So Steve Brown's going to need, he stopped with, I think, at the 45-minute mark. So he's going to need a couple of yellows minimum to have a chance. And we can see Bailey almost getting into the back of Elliott Huffman as they lap, who was that? Joao Freitas, as Freitas makes a run on Bailey on the outside of the hairpin.
That's got to be frustrating, but these guys are all trying to race for position out here. Obviously not between the two classes of Freitas and Bailey, but you know, every second is going to count, especially when these pit stops start to cycle back through. And whoa, Bailey almost looking up the inside of Huffman into 5 and tries to stay out of the back of that Mustang that already has seen a little bit of the wars. But I was going to say, we've seen guys like Amjad Yaman and Arthur Chan and James Stevenson duck into the pits, and Dexter Castro as well, actually, late into that last caution. So some of these guys could be good to go till the end, and some of these other guys have to make one more stop potentially. So even though we've got some unusual situations going on in ST there as we watch them try to go past Dexter Castro right now, actually, things are really still sorting themselves out with even only a half hour to go.
Yeah, the only guy that I feel confident about saying that he can get to the end is Patrick Bieri, who is sitting in 11th right now, 6 seconds behind the 10th place car of James Alex Brown. But another Brown, Steve Brown, he has managed to put another half-second lead in front of Fanador, Huffman, and Bailey. And I don't know if you saw it, guys, but Huffman got really loose through the left-hander that is turn 3. That's not what you want to do there. That's really easy to spin in that corner.
And spinning up those tires, as you know, Kevin, is really going to hurt these guys, especially later down the line. One of the features we've seen in CESCS throughout the years has been save your tires, take care of them in these Mustangs, or it's going to bite you.
Yeah, absolutely. This Mustang, it's so easy to burn off those tires, and I kind of wonder if maybe Elliott's not struggling with that a little bit, although he gets a nice run out of 5. So he was definitely loose again through turn 4, so not sure if that was just he had greasy tires from Haspin in turn 3 or not.
Yeah, and you know, we were talking a little bit before the broadcast about whether the tires are going to be an issue, and I kind of wonder if the rears are what these guys have to worry about, as I think Huffman's going to head into the pits, it looks like. Yes, he's ducking into the pit lane. So Huffman is going to take his final stop and see where he squares off and things. And this is under green, so he is going to lose a lot of time. But I was going to say, Kevin, with the rears, you know, we've got turn 4, we've got turn 1, and turn 5. All of these slow corners that are acceleration zones. I wonder if these guys that aren't taking care to make sure and get the nice amount of grip that they need are just starting to get squirrely because the rear tires are getting too hot.
Could very well be. That's going to be an easy thing to do at this track. I know that I struggle with rear tires at corners like this because I tend to be super aggressive getting on the power. But we know past champions like Kimmo Suominen and Dan Rash always super good at getting on the power. So this is a place where they would see all kinds of dividends. And those other smooth drivers that we know about, like Patrick Bieri, they should be able to make those tires last. So driving style is going to be a huge part of how well these guys are going to be able to run today.
Meanwhile, Ayrton, it sounds like you have some information on our former leader in the ST class.
Yep, Sergio Moore has went into the pits, and the driver who was behind him and went into the pits earlier on was Amjad Yaman, and Sergio Moore came out a good amount ahead of Amjad Yaman, so those guys are both still behind James Stevenson and Arthur Chin, who also pitted in that front group, so they both lost time, but it seems like Amjad Yaman was the biggest loser through the pit cycle.
Stevenson, though, has worked his way up into 3rd in all of this. Dexter Castro is going to lead a lap potentially here, as actually he did lead a lap. He was scored last time by as the leader in the ST class, so he is going to get those bonus points, and Eric Smith is behind him, still continuing on, but nowhere near to try and close up on that draft. We are now looking at Stevenson sitting in 3rd, and this is, I'm very curious because there's so many guys employing such different strategies out here. It's very hard to tell who's going to end up where.
I think that if a caution comes out, Dexter Castro, Eric Smith, and James Stevenson will all be able to go to the end. And if a caution does not come out and it goes green to the end, they're all going to have to pit, and Amjad Yaman will be the front of the guys. Actually, no, Sergio Mora will be the front of the guys who doesn't need to pit.
Meanwhile, Kevin sounds like has some information as far as Bieri and his unusual strategy and how that's looking.
Well, yeah, but the interesting thing, so let me try and gather my breath here. So Elliot Huffman served a pit stop. We called that as he came in. He came out directly behind Patrick Bieri. They're only a half a second apart on track right now. So this works out perfectly for both of them as Huffman nearly gets into the back of Bieri, has to avoid him, gets on the grass, manages to keep his car all together and pointed in the right direction. He didn't lose too much time, only a couple of tenths. But the net result is that Bieri and Huffman can now work together in the draft and try and move forward a little bit. But Huffman needs to be a little bit careful, and now he needs to make sure he doesn't punt James Stevenson off in turn 5, maybe a little payback.
Absolutely. And as they come back onto the oval here, he's going to be able to clear him easily, as now you see Stevenson going nice and low to allow Huffman his way by. And Huffman's dropped back just a little bit from Patrick Bieri there, so he's going to have to work hard to make sure he doesn't lose that draft, because I would imagine that Bieri, at least it seemed earlier, had slightly better pace than Huffman, and that could be a boon for him to be able to hold on and maybe work his way up a few spots by gaining that extra few tenths each lap.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think these guys would be better served right now to get in each other's draft and work together. Bieri has a little damage on his front, Huffman a little damage on his rear, so they're going to be slower overall if they're out running in clean air all by themselves. And maybe it might even make sense for Bieri to surrender his position to Huffman. They may be able to run even quicker together, although there's just so little time left that that may not be a smart move.
Well, together maybe they could have a whole car nice and clean. They are currently trying to hunt down James Alex Brown, as Huffman is in 10th, Bieri in 9th, and James in 8th. And you can see Huffman in that orange, white, and purple car, and Bieri in the blue and black car trying to hunt down the white car way up there of James Alex Brown, who hasn't really had the pace of them, so it should be mostly a matter of time, I imagine, before they make up that position. Although I don't think James has made his stop, as, whoa, he actually goes quite wide through that corner and puts a couple wheels off up onto the oval portion. Another thing those marshals are going to be watching out for, so James has got to be careful.
Yeah, James went way too deep under braking into 5 and barely managed to keep the car together. So he has lost a pretty significant chunk of time to Bieri and Huffman. So I guess we'll just have to see what's going to happen. Another battle that I've been keeping half an eye on is the battle for 5th. Arthur Hermont and Sean Vandergriff. These two have been very close together with each other for a while now. Vandergriff has kind of surprised me a little bit on speed today. He's run a little faster in the race than I expected him to be doing so. Arthur Hermont, as we've documented, he's been running well. He's on definitely a different pit strategy than anybody else in the field, and he's looking to move forward. He needs some help, though. Maybe a full course yellow, and the yellow just came out.
Ooh, this throws a very interesting wrench into things, and now we're going to see some of those guys who took a gamble really start to see their problem solving come to fruition here. I don't know if either of you saw what exactly happened there. I did not see or hear anything in regards to what caused that caution.
Oh, it looks like George Britton. He was in the wall. I'm trying to look at if he had contact with anyone, but he was in the wall on the exit of turn 1.
And we're actually looking at the replay right now, it looks like. And as he comes down into turn 1, he's got Steve Brown behind him. No contact there. Now he goes to the inside. Oh, and I'm getting information that this is not actually what caused the caution. So let me see if I can go back and figure out what happened to that is actually, he got it himself turned around there, and it looks like he's got a pretty damaged car. I was actually looking away when when the replay showed what happened to him, so I'm afraid I didn't actually see if he spun or what. Well, things are going to start to sort themselves out, but until then, it looks like we are going to hop the break, and I just got information from Stefan Overgaard, the teammate of Britain, as now we're watching that replay again, that his computer froze once again, and it looks like he just tried to pull it over maybe to try and get out of the way. So let's hop over to break, let things sort themselves out. We'll come back and tell you who ended up where after the pit stops and when we go back to green. Welcome back to Kansas Motor Speedway. We have 15 minutes left in this race. We hope to go green this time by. We will see, as they seem to have gotten everything in order with all the cars in line. German Afanador is leading after Steve Brown had to make a stop and get his last bit of fuel in. Nicholas Bailey is sitting in second, both drivers never having won in this series. Anthony Woodward is sitting in third, Arthur Hermont is fourth, and Sean Vandergriff is in fifth. Meanwhile, what's the top five of ST looking like, Ayrton?
Well, we have Dexter Castro leading the group with Eric Smith in second, James Stevenson in third, Arthur Chan in fourth, and Bill Randleman in fifth. The top three guys all are very tight on fuel, but Arthur Chan seems safe. He might be in a good spot.
And we're getting word that the marshals were still ordering EOLs, so I'm going to check to see if the lights are still on the pace car. They are still off, so we might be able to still go green. So, with only 14 minutes left to go, German Afanador is looking pretty handy. Nicholas Bailey is probably not going to want him let him get away with it. However, you can't count out Arthur Hermont, and I have to say, it's going to be very close with a few drivers in ST on fuel, Ayrton.
Yeah, definitely. Dexter Castro, Eric Smith, and James Stevenson, they all pitted on the previous constant, not this one. So they're all very tight. But we do have Arthur Chan, Sergio Moore, Amjad Yaman. They all have pitted during the green, are very safe on fuel. So they might have a good jump if the others run out of fuel.
And we are watching Dexter Castro, the leader in ST, letting the rest of the GS field cruise on by. So from what I heard from the marshals, we are going green this time by. Let's hope that this is the last stint of green and we finish without another caution, because I don't think we're going to be able to manage time, although they can shorten the caution if they decide that the marshals want to. Coming through turns NASCAR 3 and 4 with the pace car, so we are going to get back to green any moment now.
And I do want to point out that, we were discussing during the break that we really have no idea on who can actually make it to the end of the race without stopping. The only guys I am confident that can make it to the end are Patrick Bieri and Steve Brown. They're running 7th and 13th right now, but the pace car is off. Take it away, Joe.
Yes, we see German Afanador leading that group of GS cars to the line, waiting for the green, which comes now, and he accelerates away. He gets a decent start as Nicholas Bailey holds onto him, not letting him get a good jump. And behind them, Anthony Woodward is trying to hold off Arthur Hermont. As look at German Afanador go defensive, and Anthony Woodward comes way up the inside, but doesn't try to sneak it in, just brakes very late. A few cars making little taps of each other. Everybody trying to hold their ground as they know this is it, this is definitive. And wow, Anthony Woodward really got, I'm sorry, no, that was Alexis Molina, who was next to Arthur Hermont, who just lost ground like nothing. And let's hop back to ST, see how that restart is going.
Meanwhile, James Stevenson managed to get up to second, is now challenging Dexter Castro for the lead in the ST class. He's on the outside going into turn 4. They're right behind the Mustang crews. James Stevenson almost has contact with the Mustang driver in front of them. I believe that is Kevin Cook. So managed to stay away from contact, but lost the chance to get on Dexter Castro.
And now Cook is going to accelerate back past them once again. This is not what these guys are going to want. Meanwhile, behind them, look at Amjad Yaman trying to hold back Eric Smith into the braking zone side by side. And Stevenson is coming up the inside. We've got 3 wide, and we've got another car inside. And I think Stevenson got tipped.
He got contact from Amjad Yaman. His left rear suspension is going to be hammered after that.
His car looks like it might be grabbing slightly. I'm not sure if it's just the angle I'm looking at. He's taking off decently, but this is going to be a boon for Dexter Castro, who is pulling away. He still is not clear of the woods, though, as Arthur Chan has got the draft behind him.
Stevenson has contact with Bill Randleman. He spun Bill Randleman around on the oval section of the track.
And I don't see a caution yet. Randleman is able to get himself going. He was well out of the way. A good call from the marshals as everybody is still driving under green. And German Fanador is still leading Nicholas Bailey, but Bailey is hassling him all over.
And guys, Steve Brown just passed 2 cars on the outside of turn 1 before making contact with Patrick Berry in turn 2. Steve Brown is a man on a mission right now. He's gone from 13th to 8th right this second.
10 minutes left to go. He's going to have to make some incredible moves to try and make up room, as he is currently behind Brendan McIntyre, who was trying to hold on to the lead earlier in the race, so we know that he can be one tough cookie. Ahead of them is Sean Vandergriff a little bit up the ways, then Alexis Molina, and then Arthur Hermont, and you are into the top 4. And it looks like it's still between these top 2, as Anthony Woodward is just dropping back behind Nicholas Bailey, and German Fanador starting to take off and put a gap on the rest of the pack.
And this is exactly what a Fanador and Bailey need to happen. They need to hook up with each other and try and drive away from Woodward, hope that Woodward will hold the rest of the field up. But Bailey's not interested in that. Bailey has moved to the outside in NASCAR 3. I think Bailey wants to lead for the rest of the race right now. There is not a lot of time left, and a yellow will end the race. So this is a good heads-up attack from Nicholas Bailey, but I'm not sure it's going to work because he's on the outside for turn 1, Joe.
Side by side down into the braking of 1. They get oh so close, as German does not leave him much room on the outside. No contact made. German has the inside line, and it looks like Nicholas Bailey is going to have to slot back, and this has allowed Anthony Woodward to start closing back right up to them, and which also includes Arthur Hermont. Now I have to give credit to Woodward, though, because he's definitely not losing too terribly quick on these guys. He is staying in it and driving very well. He is not a driver we're very familiar with in this series, but he's definitely making a name for himself being in the top 3 at the end of this round.
And Elliot Huffman just made an attempt on Steve Brown. That didn't work. Bieri looking to counter on Elliot Huffman. These guys all want to move in front of each other. I think Bieri's a little ticked right now that Steve Brown kind of accidentally punted him off in turn 2. They're side by side under braking for turn 5. This is very, very close, but Huffman's going to have the preferred line going through this hairpin.
And Bieri, I was going to say that's Bieri going extremely wide out there. So that was a bad place for him, although with him going so wide, he might have been able to get just a little bit more of a run. And he is closing in with the draft on Huffman, and they are losing ground to Steve Brown, who is actually looking to try and get around Brendan McIntyre. Is he going to look? Yes, he dodges up to the outside, so he's going to be on the wrong side when they come down to 1, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's going to work out. Steve Brown coming very, very close under the apron. McIntyre kind of forcing him up high on the apron. Brown looking to be in a good position, but again, this is a really tough place to make a pass happen on the outside of turn 1. They are side by side through braking at turn in. McIntyre's got it. He's going to take that spot, retain that spot easily.
I thought that maybe Brown was going to try the over-under, but they both completely missed that apex, each trying to go as deep as the other. And now Elliot Huffman has a really good run on Brown, and Brown goes defensive up towards 4, and he's going to be able to box in Elliot Huffman and has the inside of Brendan McIntyre. Is he able to get it done? Look at Patrick Bieri getting in on that action too. 2 by 2 around the hairpin. Everybody comes out clean, but it's not over yet, as McIntyre is going to have the inside of the 4.
Arthur Chan has contact with Sergio Mora for the 2nd place position. He gets spun around, hits the wall, has a lot of damage as well. So now Sergio Mora up into 2nd place, but has João Freitas right on his tail.
And it looks like those guys were actually working together, as Freitas was actually pushing him. We're looking at the replay of what happened to Arthur Chan there. And it was just, once again, 2 cars into an area where you don't want 2 cars, both going for the same amount of real estate, and it did not work out, unfortunately. But let's hop back live because we've still got Mora now holding on to second with, oh, and look at the move by, and James Stevenson just tipped Mora. This is allowing Freitas to have to go way outside just to try to avoid that wreck. And he's actually going to break the draft, it looks like, as he pulls away from this group of cars that is still squabbling.
So João Freitas at the beginning of this caution was in about 12th place, and now he's in 2nd.
And that was an ambitious move from James Stevenson, and unfortunately it didn't seem to work out. At least I think it was Stevenson. There was so much going on, I can't remember who was on the inside of who. But ahead of it all, Dexter Castro is just calm, cool, and collected, hopefully trying to make it to the end on the fuel that he has. He's only got 5 more minutes to go.
And Patrick Fieri and Elliot Huffman both managed to get around Brendan McIntyre. Now they're all going to try and set sail and try to catch up to Sean Vandergriff. But that Brown Fieri Huffman group is about 3.5 seconds behind Vandergriff. That's going to be a tough ask. Right now, our leaders in GS, Afanador and Nicholas Bailey, they have kept working together in the draft, and they are steadily, slowly pulling away from the 3rd place car of Arthur Hermont, who got around Anthony Woodward a couple of laps ago. Hermont is quick, but I don't know if he is quick enough to get those few vital tenths that he needs to catch the draft with Nicholas Bailey.
And Nicholas Bailey is sitting in the perfect position right now if it was me out there on that track, because every lap Nicholas is getting a sense of how much that draft is going to pull him in. If he times it right, he could just try and slingshot around German Afanador and get that maiden win, but he's going to have to really focus and just get his exit right on 5 in that final lap, and really pay attention to the clock for that matter, as German Afanador completely misses that apex into 1.
Yeah, and we are 5 minutes left to go. There's only about 4 laps remaining, and we should point out that positions 1 through 6 in the GS field have not had a win. Steve Brown and Patrick Fieri are the only GS cars to have ever had a win, so it's looking likely that we are going to have a first-time winner today.
Question is, who is going to take it? Who is going to wear that crown for today? And right now, German Afanador is holding on to that top spot. He's got that track position, but how important is that at a draft track like this? We'll find out in only 4 minutes' time as the laps just tick down for these guys. And considering that they are doing about 126s, I believe, 127s it looks like, that means we have all of, I believe, 2 or 3 laps to go.
And Joe, that was an absolutely horrible lap by Nicholas Bailey. He has lost several tenths to German Afanador and has allowed Arthur Hermont to close up to him. So it looks like if there's going to be a battle here, it's about to be a 3-car battle for the lead.
Meanwhile, Dexter Castro still holding onto it in ST, with João Freitas not nearly close enough to pull up on that draft. The best he can hope for is that Dexter has to conserve fuel or actually runs out of fuel. So we could see Dexter Castro take his 2nd win, I believe, because if I recall, he's had 1, and João Freitas went way high up there. As we continue to watch Dexter Castro, João is going to have to be very careful about how many wheels he sticks off on that banking of 5.
Meanwhile, there is a really good battle for 3rd place. Eric Smith is trying to hold off Amjad Yaman and Sergio Mora, both very hungry for a podium position.
Meanwhile, let's hop back to GS, because it looks like Arthur Hermont is getting up into the mix.
Yep, he absolutely poked his nose in on Nicholas Bailey as Bailey went deep, but it's not enough. Bailey's going to retain that position in 2nd place. These guys, I don't know that you really want to fight all that hard right now, except that Hermont does want to be in 2nd. I think 2nd is the catbird seat today.
Absolutely. Now they head onto that backstretch, exiting out of 5. Everybody's starting to learn their lesson. Everybody getting nice, smooth exits, putting the power down gently as Arthur Hermont tries to pull in on that draft of Nicholas Bailey. And Nicholas is actually down low. Is he pitting? Nicholas is pitting. Nicholas is not going to be able to make it on fuel. Heartbreaking for Nicholas Bailey, who is sitting in such a good position. But this allows Arthur Hermont into 2nd, which, as we said, is the position it seems you want to be in.
Oh, that's just unfortunate news for Nicholas Bailey. I wondered if he could make it under green flag conditions. The answer is no. So now, can Afanador and Hermont both do the same? They only have a couple laps to go. Afanador is not the fast car under braking anymore. I wonder if he's trying to save fuel. Arthur Hermont is looking mighty fine right now.
Yeah, and this is going to be such a boon to him because he's been up there but never really challenging for that win. So for him to be able to pull it off, and look at him, he's taking a look up the inside of 4. And actually, I'm sorry, we're on Patrick Bieri right behind Steve Brown. Now we're on Arthur Hermont for that battle for the win. Just incredible stuff. Everybody looking for every opportunity.
Yeah, but I think you got to wait until the white flag lap. I think Hermont just needs to stay behind Afanador right now. I think Afanador is trying to save fuel. He just does not look as quick as he was. So unless his tires are completely gone, it's got to be fuel shot right now. And I'm pretty certain we're going to see the white flag this time by, Joe.
Yes, we've got a minute left to go, so this should be it. White flag for these guys this time. They go by the line. You'll have to keep us updated, Ayrton, on whether or not Dexter Castro is going to have enough fuel, as it looks like João Freitas might be closing just a little bit on him as well. Meanwhile, up at the lead in the GS class, German Afanador coming to the line. Is he going to get the white flag this time? Let's see if it comes up. I'm not seeing it yet.
Well, there's only 30 seconds left in the race, so it's absolutely the white flag, Joe. But here's where it gets interesting. They have ST cars in front of them. That's Bill Randleman and Russell Clayson that they might catch. Obviously, Afanador will be happy to see his teammate of Russell Clayson. Maybe Clayson can affect this race, but Hermont, he needs to just be clean right through the hairpin as they approach. This is going to be the final shots right here.
All he's got to do is get a good exit. Once again, looking to that inside, it seems very unsure of whether or not German Afanador is going to be able to brake too soon or not. And he has a decent exit, but he's not close enough. He's going to have to really focus and make sure that he gets the best exit possible coming out of 5. They are coming up on the lap traffic of these ST cars. They are trying to get out of the way. And look at this. It looks like Arthur Hermont's going to get balked with Bill Randleman on the inside of him. He's not going to be able to get a good exit. Trying to get that power down. Is he able to do it? He's close, but I don't think he's quite close enough.
No, Joe, it's about 9/10 right now. That trying to get around Bill Randleman, I think, iced it for Arthur Hermont. Looks like it's going to be German Afanador walking it home unless he runs out of fuel on these last few meters.
He's got it so far. I don't see his car sputtering quite yet. Arthur Hermont closing in with that draft, but just not enough. German Afanador is coming to the line. This is it. Checkered flag for German Afanador, taking his first win in the GS class in the CESCS. Where is Dexter Castro?
He's coming. He just went around turn 4. He's coming into turn 5 right now. No signs of fuel saving. He's been running super fast laps, so it looks like he's going to be good to go until the end.
Coming around turn 5, this should be it, the final braking zone for Dexter Castro. He's had one win, if I remember correctly, and that was at the 2.4 hours, the opening round in Season 4, if I'm remembering right, actually. And Dexter Castro looking good to finally get that second win, unless he also runs out of fuel. João Freitas is there to pick it up. We've seen it before on the final lap with cars, but right now he is cruising around NASCAR 3 and 4. Dexter Castro looking good to take win number 2 in the ST class. He hasn't been able to race all season, but this time he's made good of it. He avoided all the pitfalls. Dexter Castro is going to win an ST class at Kansas Motor Speedway. Well done.
And guys, there was a wreck on the start-finish that we didn't see between Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri. Bieri and Brown were side by side. Bieri in front, and they touched. Bieri spun around, went into the wall. Elliot Huffman snuck by both of them.
Oh man, horrible way for him to finish that one, unfortunately. But great finish on both sides. Incredible use of strategy from a lot of people as we now watch that replay between them. And I think that might be after it was all said and done, as it looks like we're watching Steve Brown. Well, now we're going back just a little bit farther. Now it looks like we're back to that replay as we've got the eye up in the sky. Now we're switching to the TV cameras here. Steve Brown looking to try and hunt down Patrick Bieri. Down that backstretch, you can see that draft is so crucial with these guys. Huffman watching behind them, and he's just licking his chops, wondering if he can maybe do something up here with it the final lap. Coming to the outside, and unfortunately they come together, and look at that. Just cruises on by. Bad news for Brown after such a good race through the rest of it, and a bad strategy call must have killed it. We are going to go to break now, though, and we are going to come back with the unofficial results and some interviews, so stick around.
Lofçanın
Welcome back to Kansas Motor Speedway. We just witnessed round 5 in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. When all was said and done, German Afanador took his maiden win and sealed the deal on finally after quite a few seasons actually in this series. Well done to him. Arthur Hermont came in second. Sean Vandergriff came in third. Anthony Woodward was fourth. Elliot Huffman was fifth. Steve Brown was sixth. Brendan McIntyre came in seventh. Then Jason Breifogel in eighth. Tim Brokaw finished 9th, and then Patrick Bieri in 10th, Kevin.
11th was Matthew Oak, 12th Alexis Molina, 13th Jeff Jacobs, 14th Kevin Cook, 15th James Alex Brown, 16th Nicholas Bailey, who had to stop on the last lap for fuel, 17th Mike Main, and 18th was Philip Carpenter. John Ehlers, and 19th was a did not start.
In ST, Dexter Castro finally came home with his second win in the series. João Freitas took a good finish in second. Amjad Yaman continuing with his consistency, taking home third. Eric Smith, a great run in ST for him, coming home fourth. Sergio Mora finishing fifth. David Whammond in sixth. Then in seventh, it's James Stevenson after some bad luck and some incidents at the end of the race. Tom Eckline came in eighth. Ed Verras was ninth. And then Russell Clayson in 10th, Ayrton.
Then in 11th, we had Bill Randleman, 12th, Stephen Asbury, Arthur Chan after his unlucky incident at the end in 13th, Richard Losburn 14th, and then George Britton in 15th, Matthew Ranhold in 16th, Corey Ferguson 17th, and Stefan Overgaard in 18th.
Well, first up for interviews, we have our ST winner, and that is Dexter Castro. Ayrton's going to ask him a few questions.
Thanks, Joe. Dexter, can you hear me okay?
As a matter of fact, I think I can.
Okay, well, congratulations on the first one of the season and only 2 races entered so far this season. How do you feel?
Well, very warm. Just enjoyed a celebratory Klondike bar, so shout out to them. But it was a lot of fun. I love this track. And apparently I'm decent at it. Had good pace today, which was unusual. Usually I'm a little bit off the top guys.
So after the second to last caution, we us on the booth were a little confused about calculations for fuel because we thought that you might be pretty tight on fuel, but you seem to have plenty at the end. Can you tell us about the fuel strategy?
Yeah, well, before the last caution, I was going to be very tight. I was going to probably come down to exactly enough fuel, or if I was unlucky with where the field fell as the white flag came out, I may have run out. But I mean, I'm not in it for the points this season, so I might as well give it a shot. But then the last caution definitely cleared it up. I had no problems after that.
Well, it was definitely a good call. So congratulations once again. Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I hope I didn't cause any chaos back behind me on that last start. I left about 4 seconds, but apparently that wasn't quite enough of a gap to the GS field, and I think it may have caused a little chaos. Almost cost Amjad the race.
It didn't seem like too much of a problem. Thanks again. Back to you, Jeb.
Yep, thank you.
Also with us, we have our 4th place finisher in the ST class, and that is Eric Smith. Eric, I understand that this could be your last, if one of your last, races with CESCS for a long time.
Yeah, I think I should make the next race, but after that I'll be in Japan, and I'm not sure I want to deal with that latency.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing over there, because it sounds like an interesting deal.
It's just teaching English through the JET program, through their federal government.
Well, with a 4th place finish in ST, that's nothing to be ashamed of, especially in such a competitive field. Are you happy with that?
Surprisingly, yeah, I was all the way up to 2nd, but that last caution was both a savior and a curse. I was very cautiously watching my fuel drip down, and so I was wondering if I could save enough fuel without getting past, and then I was able to save the fuel in the caution, but that also brought everybody right up to me.
Well, the next one is Watkins Glen. You said you should be able to make that. How do you feel your chances are on jumping up a few more steps and maybe finally getting a win in this series?
I don't know. I think I've always been upper mid pack at Watkins Glen. I guess it's just these fast tracks that don't do well for me.
All right, well, again, congratulations on 4th place, and thanks for talking to us.
All right, thank you.
Up next, we have Kevin Brown. He is going to ask a few questions of German Afanador.
German, there's really only one thing to say, and that's congratulations on your maiden Continental Endurance Sports Car Series win there.
Thank you, Kevin. It was tough. I got lucky there at the end, I think, with my pit strategy. At the end, I had 0.2 gallons left. I couldn't have made another lap. So, yeah, my strategy was basically pit when there was a yellow and hope for the best. I had a really good car, though. I was able to push.
Yeah, we could see you were definitely just super good under braking. Made a few comments on it during the race. But how hard were you getting pushed by Nicholas Bailey at the end there, because he had to pit with 1 lap to go?
Well, after the restart, I was trying to conserve fuel as much as I could, knowing that Nick was also short on fuel. But Nick was pushing me really hard, so I just had to step on it at the end.
Well, once again, congratulations. It's got to be a great feeling today.
Oh yeah, I'm really hot. I had to work hard for it. Made some mistakes here and there, but all in all, it was good.
Thanks, German. And I believe Joe's going to talk to Sean Vandergriff, our 3rd place finisher in GS.
Sean, well done today, bringing the car onto the podium. It looked like there was a lot of uncertainty up at the top of the GS field throughout the race with all the strategy and cautions. What were your thoughts when you found yourself up towards that front pack at the end and you started seeing guys peel off?
Actually, I was lucky enough to hit the pit road right about the 55-minute mark, and I was strapping behind. I think it was Arthur. I can't remember who it was. Anyways, we were riding. We were going to be pretty good till the end of the race, and I knew everybody in front of us would have to pit if it stayed green. So I was hoping just to ride behind him and let he and I fight out before the caution came out. But there at the end, it was a blast fighting with those guys and racing them. Almost gave the podium away at the end, missing a shift coming onto the oval though.
Was it pretty difficult trying to keep the rear tires cool? Because we saw a lot of guys spinning them up out of some of the slow corners in the Mustangs throughout the day.
I didn't have too much of a trouble with that, to be honest with you. I kind of tightened the car up so I could use the throttle to help steer the car off the corner. And I don't know what it looked like with you guys, but from my vantage, it looks like cars were just going off everywhere. I mean, it looked kind of crazy. So I was actually being kind of conservative throughout the day, just trying to make it to the end.
Well, it certainly seemed to pay off. Again, congratulations on grabbing a podium, and look forward to seeing you at Watkins Glen.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your broadcast.
Well, after an exciting race today, we have to close up once again. We are now 5 rounds down, so we are getting into the thick of this championship, and it's getting ever more interesting with a lot of regular contenders having trouble. But before we go, we want to thank a few people. Obviously, thank you to the main sponsor of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, which is Safecraft Racing. They provide a lot of real-world safety equipment for motorsports to keep guys' noggins in one piece. Also, thank you to Wes Eric, the organizer of the CESCS, who puts in a lot of hours to get this thing going. Also, thank you to iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and AverMedia, all software and hardware that we use to make these broadcasts possible. Thanks to the team today, Kevin, Ayrton, and Giancarlo, for all the hard work that these guys put in. If you'd like to find out more about the Global Sim Racing Channel, you can find it at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and race highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at /Global Sim Racing Channel. Thanks go out to Dougie Beard, who creates all the camera sets for the Global Sim Racing Channel. And also a special thank you to Eric Ekholm, whose music is not only found here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell Eric where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Additional thanks to Casey Lalonde, who also provides us with the music for our broadcasts. You can find more of his music at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com. Our next race, as we mentioned, is Watkins Glen. That'll be Saturday, July 12th at 10:30 p.m. UTC. However, our next broadcast coming up will be VSRA at Road America, Sunday, June 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Then we have the iSuperspeedway Series at Daytona, Friday, June 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Also, the Enduro Pro Series goes to Road America as well, Saturday, June 21st at 3:45 p.m. UTC. Then the ASRS goes to Kentucky. That'll be Wednesday, June 25th, 9 p.m. Eastern. And of course, the Northwest Majors has their Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis on July 20th at 5:45 p.m. Pacific. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.